Hey guys, welcome to Pocket Saga. So in today's video we are gonna see, what if Ash settles down with Serena after becoming world champion, part 3. This story is settling down by amourshipping. Before starting, if you are interested in Pokemon fanfictions, you can consider subscribing this channel and like this video, that will help a lot. Now let's dive in. Everyone was up bright and early for Brock and Olivia's big day. Ash and Serena still wouldn't get to see each other though, until the bride and groom were able to finally meet on the aisle. Being best man, Ash was obliged to assist Brock in any way he could, including lending an ear, if Brock had any problems. And Serena promised to help Olivia with her hair and makeup. A very big responsibility to take on indeed. They had arrived at the venue early, before the rest of the guests, who followed a few hours later and were waiting in the main hall. A lot of hard work and preparation went into it all, and it was fascinating to see, as the guests admired what they had done with the place. It was a small venue as mentioned on the invites, but they had decorated it up with a rock-type Pokemon theme. It was now only 20 minutes until the main event. Serena was busy braiding Olivia's hair, while Ash and Brock were having a much-needed chat, in separate rooms. Ash was donning a tuxedo as promised to Serena, with a smart bow tie. Brock was ready too and dressed sharply, but still needed a talk with his best man first, before he went out. He was pacing about the room and biting his nails nervously. Ash was sitting down in front of him and looked concerned for his old friend. You okay, Brocco? No, I'm not, Ash. I'm panicking. I don't know if I can do this. Ash shook his head and got up. Now we both know that's absolute rubbish. You've been waiting for this day for so long. And it took you ages to find someone, after all that rejection, and now you've finally found the love of your life. He walked over to him and put his hands on his shoulders. So, you can do this. Okay. Brock mumbled something in response, and then Ash shook him a little roughly, to snap him out of his pessimism. You do love Olivia? Right, Brock? Of course I do, shouted Brock, looking a little offended. He'd even ask such a thing. Ash let go of Brock and smiled. Well then, what's the problem? Anyone can see how much you two love each other, so just go out there and marry her. Brock sighed. I know. I'm just scared. I guess I just love her so much, that I'm worried if it doesn't work out later on down the line. Getting married just makes everything so much more final, you know. I just don't want to let her down, Ash. Ash nodded and looked down, unsure of how to reassure his friend further. He couldn't believe he was the one giving advice now, but he seemed to know the right things to say nowadays. Ash was far from a relationship expert, but his own relationship had matured him a lot in the last year or so. I get that, mate. But if being with Serena has taught me anything, it's that you just have to take the plunge anyway. It took us ages to get to the point where we are now, mainly because of me. But the reality of it is that I had no idea what I was getting into, and I constantly worried that I wouldn't be giving Serena everything she deserved. Brock nodded. But with your help, I was able to become the best possible kind of boyfriend she wanted. So, my point is, you're a good guy, Brock, and you will be a great husband now. You just need to allow yourself to be vulnerable, I guess. That's what I did anyway. You just do things like that for the one you love, right? That advice sounds familiar, joked Brock. Haha. Well, I learned from the best, Brock sniggered. Well, thanks anyway, Ash. I needed to hear that. No problem. You're just nervous, Brock. But the point is, Olivia is meant for you. So surely she's worth putting your heart on the line for? Isn't she? I know Serena's definitely worth absolutely anything to me. Oh, definitely, 1,000,000%. Brock smiled and thought of Olivia. And you know what? I can do this. Come on, let's get out there. Ash grinned and beckoned him forwards to lead the way. Everyone clapped and cheered as they walked out. Both Brock and Olivia's families were there, including all the members of the Hen and Stag Night. There was one guest that surprised Ash, however, as Sophie looked over and winked at him. Ash smiled and waved back at his colleague and continued walking onwards. As the best man, Ash had to stay with Brock at the front. The registrar was waiting there and warmly welcomed them. Olivia's sister was also waiting next to them, as she was the maid of honor. The only people left to arrive now were the bride and Serena. Brock took his position and waited restlessly. Time ticked by slowly, until the clock reached 3 p.m. The wedding was supposed to begin now, but Olivia was late. Brock whispered something in Ash's ear and began to panic again. Hey, chill, Brock. I'm sure she's coming. Just take long, deep breaths, okay? Ash patted his back. Brock sighed and continued to wait, shaking a little. Minute by minute, the nerves and doubts grew stronger. But then the wedding bells suddenly chimed emphatically, like a choir of happy chimecho. Everyone turned around to see Olivia enter in a stunning white wedding dress. Serena was close behind and was holding it up from the bottom, so Olivia didn't trip. Ash excitedly psyched Brock up and told him he had nothing to worry about. As Olivia walked down the aisle and got closer, Ash caught sight of his own girl and couldn't stop himself from smiling. He had missed her so much more than he thought he would. Serena let go of the dress and met her boo's eyes too. She had only gone a night without seeing him too, but it was far too long for her and she realized just how much she missed him too. Everyone was admiring the bride, but Ash only saw one beauty to behold before him. Serena beamed back at him and immediately flung her arms around him, into a quick cuddle. "Hey, babe. I missed you so much," said Ash. "Oh, I missed you too, baby." They both leaned in for a kiss, but were interrupted by the registrar, clearing his throat. "Ahem. The wedding is about to commence. If you could please take your seat, miss." "Oh. Right. Yes, of course. Sorry." Serena quickly pecked Ash on the lips and made her way to her seat at the front. Ash winked at her and Serena giggled softly. The registrant cleared his throat again and got the ceremony underway. Brock and Olivia said their vows and then they were asked the all-important question. Olivia said yes and now it was Brock's turn. "Do you, Brock Harrison, take Olivia Phillips, to be your lawfully wedded wife?" asked the registrar. Brock gulped and paused. Everyone, including Olivia, looked a little concerned, as they all held their breath in anticipation. Then Ash looked over at Brock and nodded, prompting him to answer and take the next step, before it was too late. Brock smiled at his oldest friend and then nodded at the registrar. "I do." Olivia sighed in relief and smiled, while everyone else finally took a breath. "Then you may kiss the bride." Brock did just that and then everyone stood to cheer and clap the newlyweds. It was truly a moment to be savored and even Ash himself could see how meaningful it was, like the final seal of commitment, to the one you love. He looked over at Serena and smiled warmly, finally understanding why she was so obsessed with the idea of getting married. With the ceremony finished, everyone headed over to the gym for the reception party, where Brock and Olivia's Pokémon were waiting to join the celebrations. But they weren't the only ones getting excited, as all the bridesmaids, including Misty in the center of them, were all in a commotion around Olivia. Ash looked over confusedly and then Serena rushed over to join them. He scratched his head and wondered just what the hell was going on. And then Olivia answered his question. "Are you ready, girls?" "Yes," they all shouted back. "Okay. 3, 2, 1. A bouquet of flowers flew into the air, as all the bridesmaids flung their arms in the air to catch it. Misty was perhaps the most determined to get it and pushed her way through, as they came hurtling down towards her. She nearly had it in her grasp, but then they just about slipped through her fingers, bounced off Dawn and gently fell into the hands of an unsuspecting honey-blonde girl. All the bridesmaids apart from Misty squealed and clapped delightedly for the lucky girl. "Congratulations, Serena," said Olivia. "Looks like you and Ash might just tie the knot one day soon, huh?" She winked at her and then everyone looked over at Ash, who still looked clueless. Everyone laughed at his obliviousness and got back to the celebrations. Olivia chuckled too and made her way over to the bride and groom table, to have a first meal with her new husband. After eating a plateful of food, she chinked a glass with a spoon and called for everyone's attention. Everyone stopped what they were doing and gave her their full attention. "Okay. Well, firstly I'd just like to thank you all for coming." Everyone clapped. "Thank you. Now, we're about to hear the speeches from the maid of honor and best man. And then the party can really begin." Everyone cheered and then Olivia called her sister and Ash over. Olivia's sister went first and then it was Ash's turn. He stood up and cleared his throat. Nerves overtook him suddenly, as he realized he had to get this right, because it would mean a great deal to Brock and Olivia. Speeches really weren't his forte, but he took a deep breath and found the eyes of the only person in the room that could calm his nerves. Serena nodded at him encouragingly and then Ash was ready. "Well, it's certainly been quite a day, hasn't it?" he began. Everyone murmured in agreement. "Especially for me," being the best man and this being my first wedding. But it has been truly wonderful, hasn't it? And who would have thought our Brock would be here now, with the woman of his dreams, after all those rejections, joked Ash. Everyone laughed and even Brock did a little. No, but seriously. Brock has been there for me from day one. He's my oldest friend, alongside Misty over there. He pointed towards her. And I wouldn't be where I am today, if it wasn't for them. I've really come a long way since I started my journey with them. So, thanks, guys. And thank you, Brock, for being the best friend a guy can ask for. Brock raised his glass to him and everyone clapped. Whereas, Misty was surprised that Ash had even acknowledged her, after everything, and now he was so dedicated to Serena. But by this point, she had moved on and was just happy Ash still regarded her as a friend. She whispered a thank you to him and smiled. Ash nodded. Once the clapping stopped, Ash wrapped his speech up. So on a final note, my friend, I can never repay you for how much you've helped me over the years. Especially in finding love with my beloved, Serena. Ash looked over at her. Serena blushed and lowered her head shyly. So, my brother, I wish you many years of happiness with the love of your life. To Brock and Olivia. Ash raised his glass and everyone raised theirs too in unison. To Brock and Olivia. Chanted everyone. With the speeches all done, the party kicked off immediately. Brock and Olivia had the first dance and then everyone followed after. Dancing and laughing and drinking and thoroughly enjoying themselves. Some were drinking more than others though, as Misty and Sophie got absolutely hammered together. Whereas, Ash and Serena were more concerned about having a rare dance together. They hadn't had one since Ash's welcome home party. Don't Stop Me Now by Queen was playing first, as everyone got their limbs moving on the dance floor. Ash and Serena were grinning ear to ear for the whole dance and just loving life the whole way through. And there was literally no stopping them now, in terms of their relationship. They were riding on a beautiful horizon and the future was bright. After a few more dances, they got tired and decided to grab a bite to eat and something to drink. May and Drew came over to chat to them and exchange stories of their relationships with one another. Well, at least Serena and May were. It was mainly girl chat, about Ash and Drew as boyfriends. Don and Gary joined in too, soon after the chat began. The boys were just nodding along and shaking their heads at one another, when their partners weren't looking, in agreement that the conversion was a little awkward for them. But Serena had nothing but positives to say about her man, with the odd playful joke about him here and there. May, Don and Gary, of course, knew Ash very well, so found them all funny, but they were still surprised at just how much he had matured since being with Serena. Ash smirked and found their reactions to his newfound maturity quite amusing. He laughed and chugged down the rest of his drink and then got up. All right, that's enough of that. I'm just going to the toilet. I'll be right back, babe. Okay. See you in a minute. Ash kissed Serena's cheek and made his way over to the toilets. As he walked out of the dance hall, he attracted the attention of Sophie, who drunkenly licked her lips and stumbled over towards him. Ash turned a corner and went into the toilets. When he was finished and walked back out, he saw Sophie twirling her hair. She winked and Wolf whistled at him. He raised an eyebrow and looked at her expressionlessly. Can I help you with something, Sophie? He asked. She chuckled and got up close to him. Her hands reached for his bow tie and tightened it a little. Sophie was hoping to get a reaction, but Ash didn't even flinch and just gave her a deadpan look. Oh. Why so serious, handsome? Well, you're acting a bit strange. Oh, come on, lighten up, Ash, let's have some fun. Sophie ran her hand down his chest, but Ash just shook his head and moved away from her. Why so shy? You don't seem like the type. Sophie moved closer to him again and Ash moved a step back again. I should really be getting back to Esser. Sophie swayed back in front of him and placed a finger on his lips and shushed him. Then she leant over to his ear. Why don't you just shut up and do me in the toilets, huh? She whispered. Ash widened his eyes in shock, completely taken aback by this sudden bold move from Sophie, a girl he previously thought was quite sweet and innocent. But the drink had changed her and she was single and horny. She'd always fancied Ash from the day he stepped foot in the center and had become a little jealous of Serena when she found out she was his girlfriend. Yet, she'd still respected that they were together and never made a move. Until now. Ash seized up a little, not knowing what to do to stop her. He didn't want to upset her, but she was now leaning in to kiss him, so he had to do something. Most men would have taken her into the toilets and given her what she wanted. She was a very attractive lady, with long auburn hair, thick thighs, wide hips, and probably the bustiest girl at the wedding. Her boobs pressed up against Ash's chest, as she came within an inch of his lips. Any average, red-blooded male would be tempted. But Ash wasn't even entertaining the idea for a single second. He only had eyes for one temptress. But Sophie didn't care. She kissed him without even asking. Ash immediately pushed her off him as gently as he could. He didn't want to harm her, especially in her drunken state, but he still had to be firm with her. "No, Sophie. What are you doing? You know I'm taken," he said sternly. Sophie looked a little bit stunned that Ash rejected her. She clearly wasn't used to it. Sorry. I was just lonely." "Well, I'm sorry to hear that. But it's still not right. I know you're drunk too, but that was not cool. Not one bit. I'm with Serena, okay?" Sophie nodded and looked down at her high heels sheepishly. "Right. So, I'm just gonna pretend this never happened. You're a good friend, Sophie. But nothing more, you got that?" Loud and clear, slurred Sophie. "Okay. Well, I'm going back to my girlfriend now. Enjoy the rest of your night." As Ash began to walk off, a peering head quickly spun back around the corner. Sophie stayed by the toilets for a bit, feeling a little embarrassed. Like Misty, she too had learnt the hard way that Ash was a one-woman man and he had devoted his whole self to her entirely. Ash sat back down at the table and put a hand on Serena's lap. He considered telling her about what had just happened, but decided not to. It was history to him now and he didn't want to upset Serena or make things awkward for Sophie. "Hey, Rena. Pass the bread, will you, please?" asked Ash, pointing to it on Serena's side. He hadn't eaten nearly enough yet and he was going to take full advantage of all the food he could eat while it was still there. "Sure." Serena handed the bread bowl to him, but she looked a little uneasy. Ash noticed it straight away and looked at her concernedly. "You okay, babe?" "Yeah, just fine," she lied. She looked over to the other side of the room, where Sophie had just returned to her table. Serena found herself getting angrier and angrier as she looked over, not even realizing she was grinding her teeth together now. But then she took a deep breath and looked back at Ash, smiling sweetly. They continued to chatter and eat, but then she heard Sophie laughing with Misty and then her temper was at boiling point. Serena got up hastily. Where are you going?" mumbled Ash, with a mouth full of bread. "Just getting a drink. I'll be back in a minute." "Oh, okay." Ash turned his attention back to the food and continued to eat, blissfully unaware. Serena walked over to Sophie calmly. "Hey, Sophie. Can I have a word, please?" Sophie was totally taken off guard by Serena's sudden appearance and looked a little uneasy. She knew what she'd done. Guilty as charged. Moreover, Serena looked like a volcano ready to erupt. And scarily enough, it took a lot to get her in that state. Sophie gulped, feeling Serena's full wrath brewing up. "Oh, hey Serena. Why yes, of course." Serena took her over to a quiet corner. "So, what's this all about then?" asked Sophie. "I saw you," said Serena bluntly. Sophie gave an apprehensive laugh in response and played about with her hair, trying to avoid eye contact. "Saw me? What?" Sophie just smiled at her, acting like she had no idea what she was talking about. She had to try and get out of this somehow. "Oh, don't play dumb. I saw you, with your tongue down my man's throat," she hissed fiercely. She didn't raise her voice, however, and tried to remain as calm as possible, but it was enough to make Sophie drop her smile instantly. "Oh, shit," she said under her breath. She wasn't going to get away with it. "Okay, it wasn't what it looked like," she panicked, quickly changing tactics. "Oh, you know exactly what you were doing. Ash is mine. Okay. You can't just go kissing anyone you like." "Yeah, fair enough. I'm sorry, Serena," she meekly apologized. Well, stay away from my man. Do you hear me?" Serena's usual kind demeanor had been completely consumed by rage. She'd never let anyone get between her and Ash, ever. And she'd do anything she could to make sure it stayed that way. Even if she literally had to throw hands with someone to keep him. Sophie gulped again and nodded in full retreat. She would be a fool to challenge an unusually enraged Serena, and she didn't want the embarrassment of a big commotion and everyone knowing what she just did. Serena looked relatively satisfied with the response and was about to leave it there. She turned away, but wasn't happy. Serena wanted to make sure Sophie got the message crystal clear, that Ash was off limits. Just for good measure. She turned back around to face her. One last thing. If you ever, so much as even look at him, a certain type of way from now on, we'll be having words again. Understand? Sophie was shook sober at those daggers for words and could only obey again. Understood, she said quietly, lowering her head down. Right, okay. Well, let's leave it there then. Enjoy the rest of your night. Now she was satisfied. But Serena did feel a little bit guilty as she got up to leave. It really wasn't in her nature to be that confrontational, but she had to defend what was rightfully hers and make sure she didn't try it on with him again. Ash had made a commitment to Serena and vice versa, so no one had the right to disrupt that. Absolutely no one. Under no circumstances. She turned around and began to walk away, but Sophie stopped her and grabbed her shoulder. Wait. Let me explain why I did it. I don't want you to think I'm after your man and I did it to upset you personally. Serena turned around tentatively and gave her a curious look. Well, I'm not gonna lie. It does kind of feel a bit personal, and you know, it's actually taken a long time to get where I am with Ash right now. So I really don't appreciate you trying to ruin it. Yeah, no, that wasn't my intention at all. I'm sorry. I've had a few drinks and I really wasn't thinking straight. So, why did you do it then? 'Cause getting a bit tipsy doesn't really excuse it, does it? Sophie sighed. No, it doesn't, but, honestly, woman to woman? Serena sat back down. She was still seething, but the caring side of her couldn't help but hear what she had to say. Okay. I'm listening. Thank you. You see, I'm just super lonely and I crave what you and Ash have. You two are really in love, aren't you? Serena dropped her guard and eased up on Sophie a little. Yes, we are. But, surely there's got to be loads of guys out there that would want to be with you. I mean, look at you. You're absolutely gorgeous. Which is why I went a bit overboard on you just now. I guess, I felt kinda threatened. Serena scratched the back of her head. She didn't think she owed her an apology at all for the way she spoke to her, but she wanted her to at least understand why she took that tone with her. It's okay. I understand, and thank you, but you're gorgeous too, you know, and I can see why Ash loves you so much. Serena cracked a little smile in thanks. Having the looks isn't all it's cracked up to be anyway. Sometimes it just makes things harder, especially for me. How do you mean? Well, yeah. Men notice me all right. I get plenty of attention, but all for the wrong reasons. Oh, I see. That must be a horrible feeling. Yup. When men talk to me, most of them are barely even listening to me. I can just see it in their eyes. All they want is one thing. Some don't even hide it. Some blatantly just stare at my tits the whole time. Sophie sniffled and began to cry. Serena comforted her straight away and put an arm around her. Oh, I'm so sorry, Sophie. I had no idea. It's okay. It still doesn't excuse what I did, though. But the reason I kissed Ash was because he actually sees me for me, you know? Not just my body or whatever. He just sees me. And he actually makes me feel like I'm more than just a sex object. He's always very kind to me and just an amazing friend in general. Serena smiled. Yeah, that sounds like my Ash. Well, you're a very lucky girl. And I have to say, it's quite admirable how loyal he is to you. He genuinely, truly, deeply, loves you. I wish I had someone like that. I am lucky, yeah. I really am. She stared over at Ash fondly. But there's absolutely no reason why you can't find love too. Why you think so? Said Sophie, drying her tears. Yeah, you just need to find the right guy. Serena looked around the room. Like Tracy. I've only met him a few times, but he's a very lovely guy. Huh? Who's Tracy? Guy in the headband over there? Serena pointed at him and Sophie looked over. Oh, he's cute, admired Sophie. Serena laughed. Well, I can introduce you too, if you want. Just as long as you promise to believe you can find love and stop kissing taken men, joked Serena. Sophie stifled a laugh. Okay, yeah, I promise. All right. Well, I forgive you. Serena hugged her. Thanks. I truly am very sorry. No worries. Now let's go say hi to Tracy. Serena helped her up and then Ash walked over towards them. He had noticed them talking and looked a little worried. Everything okay, Rena? Yeah. Just give me a second, babe, will you? Oh, okay. Sure. Ash sat back down, while Serena and Sophie walked over to Tracy and Serena introduced her to him as promised. Then she returned to the love of her life and rested her head on his shoulder. Ash continued to eat and started on the cupcakes, almost stress eating now. He took a bite of one and slowly turned his head to Serena. Sue. What was that all about with Sophie just now? Oh, I was just making sure she kept her hands off you. That's all, she said casually. Ash continued eating, but then did a double take and almost choked on a cake crumb. He thankfully managed to swallow it the right way after a few coughs, but was still feeling uneasy. What? You know. Yeah, I saw. Ash put the cupcake down and panicked. Whoa, okay. Let me just make it very clear, she kissed me, babe. I even pushed her off me and... Serena put a finger to his lips and shushed him. Ash still tried to speak over it, pleading his innocence. Hush, baby. I know. I saw everything. Oh, you did? Yeah, it's okay. I mean, you're a really amazing guy, Ash. So as much as I hate it, you're always gonna attract other girls. That's just the reality of it. And honestly, I used to feel really insecure about that and wonder why you'd pick me, out of any girl you could have. But I know how much you love me and you showed it when you pushed Sophie away earlier. Oh, Rena. I had no idea you felt that way. But to me, you are the most amazing girl in the entire universe. I chose you for a reason, Rena. I want to be your endgame. Don't you ever forget that. I'm sure you'll have admirers along the way as well. And I'd fight them all off if I have to. Serena giggled. But the fact of the matter is, you're mine. And it doesn't matter how many admirers I might have, 'cause all I want is you. Only you, baby girl. He genuinely meant every word of what he was saying there. Ash literally wouldn't even notice anyone else, as long as Serena existed. Oh, baby. Please. You're gonna make me blush, Ash chuckled. Oh, but that's exactly what I want. It's so fun making you go all red, haha. Oh, Ash. Serena rolled her eyes playfully, almost not believing that she still couldn't stop herself from blushing around Ash, even when they were a complete item now. No, but seriously. I have everything I need right here. Ash caressed her cheek. Ah, you say the sweetest things, Ash. Serena kissed him and Ash kissed her back. They kept their eyes open and eyeballed each other, as they placed little pecks on each other's lips. And then they smiled and rested their foreheads together. I love you so much, Rena, and nothing's ever gonna change that. Ditto. The truth was, anyone wanting to prise them apart would have an impossible task on their hands. As farcical as it might sound, they were just the definition of true love. The reception party was beginning to slowly wrap up now. Ash and Serena had one last slow dance, while everyone else was confused as to why Sophie and Tracy were suddenly making out in a corner. Ash and Serena just laughed and continued their dance, until Brock and Olivia announced the reception party was finished. They said their final thank yous and goodbyes and geared up for their honeymoon. They had planned to spend it in Sino, at one of the best holiday resorts in the region. Everyone waved them off, as they rode atop Brock's Steelix and took flight onwards, to the next destination in their lives. Ah, they're perfect for each other, aren't they? I hope that could be us one day, said Serena. Ash looked over at her, a little lost for words. He knew exactly what she was alluding to, but he wasn't sure he was ready for marriage yet. Even so, he already knew that Serena was his forever partner, so he smiled and agreed. Well, I don't think we're at that stage yet, but after seeing what a wedding is like, I think I'd really like this one day too. He smiled approvingly. Serena's eyes sparkled back at him. Oh, really? Yes, really, you already know I want a future with you, Rena. So when the time is right, we will work up to this, I promise. Serena's emotions were soaring sky high once again, for not the first time today, but for the better this time. She flung herself at Ash endearingly and hugged him tight. I want to be with you through everything, Ash, she said softly, in his ear. Ash held her close and rubbed her back, making her feel safe in his care. as one husband and wife took off into the sunset. The wedding bells were still ringing melodically. The future was always unpredictable and full of surprises, but it was all to come for Ash and Serena now, and faster than they thought. 4 years later, everything changed, literally and figuratively. The age had shown the most and more so on Ash, as he was now growing some facial hair. Ash and Serena were now nearing their mid-20s and still going very strong. They'd celebrated their 5-year anniversary in the spring, and now it was heading into the winter months, Christmas and the eve of another year together. A lot had remained the same, however, as they hadn't changed much as people, and their relationship was pretty much the same as it was 4 years ago, if not better. The major and most noticeable difference being where they found themselves waking up today. They had just signed the lease and moved into a new house. Their own house. Everything had been moved in and set up the day before. It would take time to make the house a home, but this was such a big milestone in their lives. The only thing left to do was to christen the rooms and make the most of having their own privacy. But that could come later. For now, they were just trying to get used to the big move. As was Delia, who was still bawling her eyes out back at Pallet. Even more so, because Ash and Serena were considerably further away from her now. To Delia's relief, they had decided to stay in Kanto at least. But they'd now upgraded to the fancier side of the region. Since their trip there for their first Valentine's, they had become rather fond of Celadon City, so the aim for the past couple years had always been to live there, and they had finally achieved it. Work wasn't a problem either, as Serena transferred to the larger bakery in Celadon, while Ash now had designs on something a lot more ambitious than the Pokemon Daycare Center. For the meantime, Ash was working a temporary job at the Celadon gym. Serena was slowly making progress too, towards her showcase school dream, no less. But they both had to be patient. Life just couldn't be rushed. And they felt nothing but pride that possibly their biggest and most important goal had now been accomplished. Ash and Serena were not just a couple, they were each other's family. And a family begins with a family home, after all. Ash was tightly clinging onto Serena from behind, with his hand around her waist. As they both stirred awake, they yawned. "Morning, Rena." "Morning, Ash." Ash let go of Serena and got up to stretch. Serena followed soon after, and then they looked around their new bedroom and then back at each other. A gradual smile formed on both of their faces, as they laughed in disbelief that they had finally actually moved into a dream home together. "So, how are you feeling, Rena?" "Good. Well, yeah, I am. I'm just still processing it all. I mean, it still needs some sprucing up and some personal adjustments. But I can really see a future for us here." She put a hand on Ash's chest and Ash put his hand on hers. "Ah, me too. Now, let me make you some breakfast." Ash got up and headed straight to their new kitchen. When he was done making breakfast, he saw Serena in the living room, waiting for him in her nightgown. "Grub's up, babe." "Oh, thanks, babe." They turned on the TV and ate their food in deep contemplation of what was awaiting them in this new exciting part of their lives. But then Serena frowned. "Hey, I just realized something." "What?" asked Ash, sipping some morning coffee. "We have no Christmas decorations. Nothing at all. We have to go out and buy some, now, before they're all sold out," panicked Serena. Ash chuckled. Okay, we'll go right after I finish my coffee." Ash and Serena got washed and dressed quickly, not forgetting to wrap up warm before they went. The temperature had dropped massively over the last week, so it was imperative. They wrapped scarves around themselves and insulated their hands and heads with gloves and woolly hats. Ash grabbed Serena's hand and then they were off to the mega store. They spent the best part of the morning and early afternoon shopping for decorations, while Christmas songs played through the store speakers. Michael Bublé's "Baby Please Come Home" was playing first as they began their shop. By the end of it, their trolley was full of tinsel, baubles, ornaments, lights, ceiling decorations and a lovely large festive wreath. The only thing left to get was the main symbol of Christmas. A Christmas tree. Ash headed over to them first, but just as Serena was wheeling her trolley away to join him, something caught her eye. In a box of ornaments were 2 ceramic love discs at the back, intertwined together like 2 turtle doves. Serena leaned her head forwards and admired them. They were so adorable that she just had to have them and picked them up too. Meanwhile, Ash was at the back of the store, calling out for Serena to come quickly. he had found a suitable Christmas tree that would look the part in their new home. A nice 7-footer, with plenty of branches and a wide berth. Over here, Rena, over here, he motioned frantically. Okay. I'm coming. Ash pointed excitedly at the tree he'd chosen and really wanted Serena's approval for it. She took one look at it and gasped a little. Well, it's a little pricey, but it's perfect. Good choice, babe. Fantastic. Let's get this all home then. Ash carried the tree to the checkout, along with the rest of the products in the trolley. Serena suddenly felt all warm and fuzzy inside, as Ash offered to pack the bags, while Serena waited by the store exit. This was truly what it meant to have a domestic lifestyle, with the love of your life. She'd dreamt of it many times growing up and as she got older, and especially after she met Ash again. Then the dreams only became more specific, with Ash at the center of them. And they were coming true now. Ash heaved the Christmas tree up onto his shoulders and carried a couple bags. Despite his muscular build from all the workouts he did, Serena couldn't let him carry everything and took the rest of the bags. Ash protested a little and said he could handle it, but Serena shook her head. Nah, absolutely not, Ash chuckled. What? Oh, nothing. This all just feels so surreal, you know? Just looking back on the day I asked you to come back with me to Pallet, to where we are now. It's crazy, but it feels so good. Serena smiled, as they began to walk down the road back home. Oh, I know, it's a good thing we stayed together, huh? She winked and Ash felt a warm feeling in his heart, despite the temperature being -1 Fahrenheit. Going out shopping together was a pleasant experience, but it was far too cold to be out for long, so they rushed home as quickly as they could. And with good reason too, as it began to snow heavily all of a sudden. Thankfully, they were close to home now and would be warm and toasty soon. Serena got their fresh new set of keys out of her coat pocket and opened the door. She stepped inside, with Ash carrying the tree and carefully behind her. Serena shut the door for Ash and they dumped their shopping on the floor. The trip had taken the life out of them, so they needed to sit down before they did anything else. They still felt very cold though, so Ash quickly put the heating on and switched their elegant electric fireplace on too. The house really was state-of-the-art and well-earned. After 4 years of hard work, of course, they were lucky to have such a good head start with their collective prize money winnings, but if any couple deserved this, it was surely them. Ash and Serena put on matching Christmas jumpers and cuddled up by the fireplace to warm up. Then Serena put the TV on and then after some rest time, Ash leapt up. He never rested for long. Hot drink? Oh, yes, please, I'd love a hot chocolate. Okay. Coming right up, my queen, Serena giggled to herself. He didn't say it often, but still being called, my queen, by her boyfriend after all this time, still gave her butterflies to this day. Her showcase win felt like a distant memory now, but it was one she'd never forget, because it was the day everything changed. Ash returned with 2 hot drinks 5 minutes later, as they sat down with them and chugged the brown liquid down their throats, taking away any remaining chill. They were feeling pretty cozy and a little bit lazy now, but work still had to be done. So they unpacked the bags and took all the Christmas decorations, including the tree, out of their packaging. They had a job on their hands all right. But thankfully they had a whole weekend to do it, before having to return to work. Ash got started straight away with setting up the tree, whilst Serena fiddled about with some of the smaller items and organized everything. Once Ash had set the tree up, they put lights and tinsel on it first, before discussing where the ornaments should be placed on the tree. It took them a good hour or so to finally be happy with the way their tree looked, with a few disagreements. But they eventually compromised and ended up with a very well-decorated tree. There were a few more things to add yet, though. Serena peered back into the box of ornaments and saw the love disc and an angel doll. She smiled and picked up the love disc first, showing them to Ash eagerly. Hey, babe. I thought these would look cute on the tree. Sort of like a symbol of our love together. La pièce de résistance. Non? What do you think? Serena held one up against the tree. Ash smiled and picked up the other half. Then he connected it with Serena's half. Oh, nice. I love these, babe. Let's put them on together, yeah? Serena nodded. They didn't take their eyes off each other, as they hooked them onto a branch, nearer the top of the tree. It took center stage, as they looked at their new beautiful Christmas tree together, rounded off by their own version of the traditional turtle doves in 12 Days of Christmas. They looked back at each other and leaned in close, for a long and sloppy, tender kiss. Then they both stood back and put each other's arms around each other. "It's perfect. Just like you, Rena," Serena chuckled. "Your flirting skills still haven't improved much after 4 years, you know." "Hey, I'm still learning. 5 years with you has been amazing, but I still have things to work on." "You do. But you're still perfect to me too, baby. But, no, the tree isn't perfect. Not yet." "Oh, it's not?" Serena shook her head and went back to the box, for the last finishing touch, the angel. "Ah, of course. I forgot about her," Serena smiled. "I want to put her on. Help me up, please." "Of course, my queen." Ash picked her up by her waist and lifted her up to the very tip of the tree. Serena carefully placed the angel on top, and then the true magic of Christmas sparkled through their new home. When she was satisfied with its positioning, she asked Ash to put her back down. He lowered her to the floor, but he didn't let go. He didn't want to. Not now she was in his arms, so invitingly. His hands were firmly grasped around her love handles, and in that moment, he wanted more than just a kiss. It was quite rare Ash got these sorts of desires. Most of the time, Serena was the one with something naughty on her mind. But Ash initiated things first this time. His whole entire body seemed to be under an uncontrollable power that made him boisterous and full of lust. Just as that stifling night in June. He just had to have her all of a sudden. Right then and there. He flipped Serena around to face him, catching her unawares and making her squeal a little. What are you doing, Ash?" Ash let his actions speak louder and pulled her up against him. Serena had no idea what was going through his mind, but let Ash do whatever he wanted with her. Then her eyes widened in surprise, as he forced his lips against hers quite hard. She muffled something, and then the muffles turned into moans, as her eyelids drooped down in pleasure. The unexpected pleasure only got better moments later, when Ash's hands went exploring, up and down Serena's body. Serena could count on her fingers the amount of times Ash did something like this, in the whole time they were together. So, even though she wasn't feeling particularly in the mood for this right now, she couldn't deny to herself how hot it was, that Ash needed her so badly and so spontaneously. It had always been a big turn-on for her, for Ash to take charge too, and even better, when she was least expecting it. So, she quickly found herself getting right in the mood for it. She wasn't sure exactly how far this was going, but she was prepared to give herself up for him, in any way he desired, as of right this second. And then Serena knew exactly what he wanted, when he cheekily squeezed her bum and spanked it. Serena giggled. "Oh, you naughty boy." Ash gave her a mischievous, but commanding look, which screamed, "I'm gonna do far more than just that to you." It was so hot, that it made Serena lose her breath and something quivered down in her pants. Serena figured it was her turn now and bit back. She started to lower her hand down Ash and rub his crotch delicately. Then the kissing suddenly stopped, as Ash pulled away, with a string of saliva drooling down both their lips. They wiped it away and stared at each other intensely. "I think it's time we really made this into our home now, if you get my meaning." Serena looked excited at what he was suggesting. They still had to finish the decorating and put up the ceiling decorations, but that was the last thing on their minds right now. "Oh, yes. I do. And you can take me whenever you're ready, sir." Serena walked over to the sofa and laid herself out, looking at Ash like an obedient schoolgirl, awaiting instructions. "You call the shots tonight, Daddy. I'm all yours. Whatever you want," she said seductively. Ash chuckled confidently and made his way over to her slowly, keeping her well on her toes. Whenever they had a scintillating night together, it was always very romantic, which was never disappointing in any way for Serena, and she always enjoyed it. But Serena had always been craving something a little more rough. And she thought tonight might just be night for that. She just saw something in Ash's eyes, glinting strongly, as he got on top of her, that got her adrenaline pumping fast. Serena could seriously be in for the ride of her life tonight, one she may not even be ready for. Ash never looked this determined before to have her. There was a fire in his eyes, just as fierce as the blazing fireplace next to them, and Ash never looked so damn sexy to Serena before. He was practically too hot to handle right now. The kissing and touching quickly resumed on the sofa, until Ash got up and lifted his jumper over him and pulled his pants down. Serena undressed herself as quickly as she could too. She didn't want to keep her man waiting and she couldn't wait herself. Ash was about to get back on the sofa with her, but then noticed a blanket on the chair next to it. He picked it up and laid it out on the floor, next to the fireplace. Then without saying any words, he picked up Serena again, getting an even louder squeal this time. "Damn, Ash. I like this side of you. Let it all out, baby." Serena winked, while Ash just grunted and continued to get what he wanted. The setting was still very romantic, though, and Ash made sure Serena was comfortable as always, but that didn't mean he was going to hold back. Tonight was going to be different. The gentle romance would always be there between them, but now it was just all about a man and a woman, going at it to their very limit, until they both reached climax and saw heaven. They both engaged in the foreplay they would usually do, gearing themselves up for a hotly anticipated bump and grind. But Serena really had no idea just what was up Ash's sleeve, just like his battling style. And she absolutely loved not knowing, as it was making her wetter than she'd ever been before. It was time to find out now. No more teasing. Serena leant forwards and watched Ash's every move, as he hovered his stiff tool between her legs and found her entrance, with the tip touching it. "You ready, Rena?" "Oh, we. Just fuck me now, Ash, I need it." Ash nodded and slammed himself into her. Serena winced a bit at the force of it hitting her, but then she threw her head back in pleasure and jumped on the ride, full speed ahead. A rhythmic, aggressive pounding began inside her and sent tingles and sensations throughout her entire body. An hour later, after a few unrelenting rounds of going at it, Ash and Serena had burned themselves out and fell asleep by the fireplace. The only thing protecting their modesty was the thin, small blanket they used to have sex on. Some hours later, Ash awoke in the middle of the night at 3 a.m. He looked over at Serena and smiled. She was well and truly out of it. Ash didn't think he had it in him, but he really did take her to Pound Town tonight. Serena was so sore by the end of it, but a good sore. Ash did worry at times, he might have been too rough. He still loved the girl after all, and they'd never done it so intensely before. But Serena loved every second of it and insisted she was just fine. More than fine even. Ash smirked cockily, as he thought back to what he did to her earlier. Serena wasn't the only one satisfied. Ash had never got so much of a rush before, and the feeling of finally letting loose was indescribable. It was like one of his workouts or Pokemon battles, but so much better. If he was a Pokemon master, he was definitely slowly becoming a master at stimulating Serena. It didn't take much though, in truth. Even Ash just penetrating her got her wet, and pretty quick at that. But by the time they were done, it always took it out of them. And Ash was still feeling it, as he woke up extremely thirsty and a little achy. Ash carefully rolled the blanket off him, being cautious not to wake Serena. It would take a lot to wake her up right now, in all honesty though, as her singing body recovered from a hard thrashing. Ash put his boxers back on and walked over to the kitchen and poured himself a glass of water. As he chugged it down, he still couldn't stop thinking about it all. Sex had never really been that important to Ash before. Serena was definitely the more needier of the two, when it came to matters of sexual urges. Ash's sex drive was only half as rampant as hers. He probably wouldn't get this horny again, for at least another week. But that didn't mean he still wasn't eager and curious about what else they could do next time. He chugged more water down, thinking about the things they had tried, which to this point was mainly vanilla. There were still so many other things to try together, and Ash was technically still discovering his kinks. So, there was certainly more fun to be had on future love-making nights. Ash finished drinking his water and walked back in the front room. He didn't quite fancy sleeping on the floor anymore, as he clicked his back in a creaky stretch. But he couldn't leave Serena there on her own, so he brushed the blanket off her and gently bent down to pick her up, bridal style. She stirred a little, as he lifted her into his arms and murmured something. Ash looked down at her and saw she was actually smiling in her sleep. He really did make her happy in so many ways, to the point where even her dreams were pleasant, because of him. Ash smiled back down at her and carried her to their bedroom. He placed her down on the bed and wrapped the covers around her. Serena continued smiling and rubbed her hand on Ash's arm subconsciously, as if to say, "Thank you." "You're welcome, baby. Sleep tight." He kissed her forehead. Ash was still tired himself and was going to go back to sleep soon, but he wanted to look at something before he did. He lowered his arm under the bed and searched around for a key. When he found it, he used it to unlock his bedside drawer. He sifted through it until he found a little red velvet box. He looked over at Serena to make sure she was still fast asleep, and then he turned back and slowly opened the box. Inside was a diamond ring. Ash stroked it and looked at Serena again. He smiled and kissed the ring and then quickly shut the box up again. Then he returned everything as it was. He didn't want Serena stumbling upon it, even by accident. He had big plans ahead, and it all had to be kept a secret. All for perhaps the most important moment in their lives together so far. Ash joined Serena under the covers and fell back to sleep, with something big on his mind. A couple weeks later, Christmas was literally just around the corner. This year was different, however. Even though they had just moved into their new house and it was close to becoming a home now, Ash insisted that they spend Christmas week away. More specifically, on holiday, away at Serena's beloved second home, back to Kalos once more. Ash was very particular about that and said he wanted Serena to be able to return every so often, and Serena was more than on board with it. The place still meant a great deal to her, even after all the years she'd spent in Kanto now. Except, what was maybe a little odd about the holiday was that Ash invited his mum, Mr. Mime and Pikachu along too. So it wasn't so much a couple's holiday, but more of a family one. Serena didn't think much of it, though, and just thought it was sweet that Ash was paying for their tickets and covering all the expenses. He'd come into more money lately, with his new temporary job at the gym, so it really wasn't a problem for him. They arrived in Kalos on a Monday night, 5 days before Christmas, and checked into the same hotel they stayed at for Serena's birthday. As they walked in, they saw a white Christmas tree in the hotel lobby, nearly as big as the tree in Rockefeller Center, New York. It truly was the most wonderful time of the year, as it was really starting to feel like Christmas now. Serena was keen to get to their room and unpack, but Ash put a hand on her shoulder and wagged his finger. As Ash had planned this all, she really had no clue what was in store this Christmas. "Hang on, Rena. There's a few people coming to see us first." Serena put her bags back down and looked confused. "Oh, who?" Ash smiled. "You'll see." They waited for another 10 minutes or so, until someone rolled a suitcase in. Delia saw who it was first and immediately ran over to hug the person. Serena looked at Ash and he simply just motioned his hand forwards and crossed his arms. When the hugging finished, Serena saw who it was and gasped. It was none other than her own mother. "Hello, sweetie. Did you miss me?" asked Grace, holding her arms out. Serena ran into them. "Oh, yes. Yes, of course, Mama. But what are you doing here?" asked Serena, not quite believing it. "Well, once again, this is all your boyfriend's doing," she replied, pointing at Ash and smiling warmly. Serena laughed in disbelief and gave Ash a look, with her hands on her hips. Ash Ketchum. What have you got planned this time, huh?" Ash laughed and waved his hands about in denial. Nothing, he lied. "I just wanted a nice family holiday. You know, especially with your mum being so far away from us. So I just wanted to remind her that she's still very much a big part of our family." Serena took her arms off her hips and sighed in awe of how sweet that was. "Ah, really? That's so thoughtful of you, babe. You see, this is why I love him, Mama," she said, looking over at Grace and grabbing his arm. "Well, you've definitely got yourself a keeper there, honey." Serena kissed him on the cheek. "Oh, I sure do." Ash smiled smugly, but in truth, he was more relieved than smug that Serena didn't probe the surprise thing any further. Because that was exactly what was going on here again. He of course meant what he said about Grace, but the main reason for this family holiday wasn't just to reunite mother and daughter. And this time it was even more important to keep the secret than last time. Ash shifted his eyes about nervously and rubbed his nose. Thankfully, Serena didn't notice, as she was too busy squeezing his arm and loving having her fully assembled family, all in one place. Well, at least immediate family anyway. There were still 2 more members to arrive. Of course, there were 2 blonde siblings that lived locally, who Ash just had to invite as well. They were practically family too. Bonnie and Clement arrived shortly after Grace and greeted everyone. By this point, Bonnie was well into her teen years and had blossomed into a lovely young lady, and to Ash and Serena's delight, she hadn't changed much in personality at all. She was still the same, sweet old Bonnie. But Bonnie and Clement weren't staying with them. They were still very much going to be part of Ash and Serena's Christmas in Kalos, though. They caught up with one another and exchanged Christmas cards and presents, and then they finally checked into their rooms. Ash and Serena, of course, had their own room, with their mothers and Mr. Mime sharing another. Once they were settled in, they didn't stay up too long and had an early night, as they were tired from the flight. Plus, they needed their rest, because Ash had intricately planned out a number of family activities to do tomorrow and for the whole week. A lot of them were things he knew Serena in particular would like, though, as this whole thing was mainly for her. On Tuesday night, they went to see a Pokemon pantomime and then a soppy Christmas rom-com Serena wanted to see at the cinemas on Wednesday night. Thursday night was a bit more exciting for everyone, as they saw a Pokemon ice skating show. Then the big night came on Christmas Eve. But it being Christmas Eve wasn't the most special thing about it at all. Ash had secretly been preparing for this night for the last year or so. Everyone was invited and getting ready to dine at the fanciest Colossian restaurant there was. The very same one a certain lovely couple shared a romantic plate of spaghetti at Amour Bay. It just had to be there. Nowhere else would do for Ash. He was now standing in front of a mirror, while fixing a bow tie, nervous, but determined for everything to go to plan. He placed his hand on his blazer pocket, where he felt a small box nestled in it. A reflection of his smile appeared in the mirror, as he patted the box and took a deep breath. Then he looked over to the bathroom. "Come on, Rena. We've got to get going, now. The reservation time is very strict." Okay, I'm coming." Serena emerged from the bathroom, looking just as delicious as she did on her birthday, 4 years ago. Except this time, she was wearing a red churst maxi dress. Ash had gone more traditional on this occasion, with a smart black suit instead. There was no time to admire each other this time though, as Ash whisked Serena out and down to the lobby to meet everyone else. It was imperative that everyone was present, to witness what Ash was going to do tonight. "Right, is everyone ready to go?" asked Ash, clapping his hands together. "Yes," responded everyone. "Okay, let's go then." "But where are we going, Ash?" quizzed Bonnie. "You'll all find out when we get there, Bon." He tapped his nose at her. "Come on then, everyone, follow me." Ash walked out in front and smiled back at everyone, leading the way there. He, of course, hadn't told anyone a thing about tonight. Ash didn't want anyone accidentally spoiling the surprise. As they approached Amour Bay, Serena gasped. She still had no idea what was going on, but she knew it had to be something of great importance to Ash, to be dining here again. "Ash, what are we doing here?" Ash put an arm around her and chuckled. "Well, we had such a nice time here last time, didn't we? So, why not?" "Yeah, but that was a one-time thing. This place costs a bomb. You didn't need to." Ash rubbed her shoulders and soothed all her worries away. "Shish. Chill, babe. It's okay. Just relax and enjoy." But Ash smiled and shook his head and then put a finger on her lips. "Only the best for you, mon amour." Serena sighed reluctantly and then rolled her eyes playfully. "Okay, fine. I can't lie. I do love this place." Serena smirked. Ash excitedly grabbed her hand and guided her in. They walked through and got shown to a large family table at the back of the restaurant. This was the first time dining here for the rest of the family, as they took their time to order what they wanted, in complete awe. Then when the topic of paying came up, Clement offered to pay for himself, and Bonnie and Ash insisted that he had it covered for Serena and both mothers. Once that was all sorted out and their food arrived, they all took in the festive cheer of a Christmas Eve night out in Lumiose City and tucked into a joyous family meal together. What was odd, however, was how slowly Ash was eating and how much quieter he was getting as the night wore on. That was not normal at all. Not one bit. Serena put a hand on his knee and squeezed it. "Hey, you okay, babe?" she whispered. "Why, yeah. I just need to go to the toilet." "Oh, okay. See you in a bit." Ash got up and went straight to the restroom, but he didn't go into a cubicle. Instead, he just stared into another mirror and splashed water over his face. Then he put his hand in his blazer pocket and took the box out. It was the same red velvet one he had kept in his drawer at home and had managed to hide from Serena all this time. He quickly peeked inside it, shut it, then put it back in his pocket and nodded at his reflection. It was now or never, he said to himself. All that preparation would go to waste if he chickened out now. But that wasn't going to happen. He was Ash Ketchum, and the love of his life, Serena Durand, was waiting outside for him and had been dreaming about this long enough. And she loved the hell out of him, as he loved her too, just as much. So this just had to work out. It had to. Ash marched out and confidently cleared his throat. Plates were looking empty now, except Ash's remarkably, as the last forkfuls of food were eaten. Ash clinked a glass to get their attention. Hey, everyone, I hope you all enjoyed your food. Everyone nodded happily and thanked Ash. Good, good. Now, there's a reason I planned this holiday and decided to come to this restaurant in particular. There's something I want to do. But I'd like us all to go out on the balcony first, if you please could. Everyone looked bemused, but respected Ash's wishes and followed him outside. Lumio's tower was even more beautiful than usual, as it was adorned with spectacular Christmas lights and decorations. Ash and Serena immediately thought back to the last time they stood over it. It was such a pretty sight and a magnificent memory in itself, that Ash almost forgot what he brought them all out in the cold for. It was quiet for a while, as Ash just held onto the balcony bar shakily and stared out to the stars in the sky. He lowered his head and took a deep breath. So, what's up, Ash? Asked a concerned-looking Serena. You didn't finish your food. That's really not like you. Is everything okay? Serena put a hand on his shoulder. Ash psyched himself up and then turned around and grabbed Serena's hand. He raised her hand up to his lips and kissed it softly. Serena found herself getting lost in Ash's eyes, as she watched his lips kiss her hand and then looked up at him admiringly. Everyone else was watching too in curiosity. Bonnie and Clement were still very confused and scratched their hands. Delia and Grace whispered between each other, speculating what Ash was up to. Just what was happening. Rena. Serena. Why, you want to be with me, right? Serena's eyes widened, upon hearing Ash say her full name, so rare to hear now. This must be a pretty big thing for Ash to say it like that, thought Serena. What? Of course I do. What a stupid question, she said, laughing and whacking him playfully on the arm. Ash laughed a little. I know. I just had to hear it first, before I do this. Do what? Ash just smiled. Then he looked over at his mum and Grace. Everything was in place. Everyone was here. He was ready. Now was the time. Ash suddenly knelt down on one knee and retrieved the red velvet box from his pocket. Serena instinctively slapped herself with her hand and covered her mouth in astonishment. She knew what was about to happen now, as did everyone else, including a few onlookers on the balcony with them, who held their breath in anticipation and were nervous for Ash. Delia and Grace gushed at each other and held hands. Clement just raised an eyebrow, while Bonnie jumped up and down ecstatically. Ash flipped the box open. The same diamond ring resided in there, shining brightly in the night air. Everyone could immediately tell it was worth quite a bit of money and gasped in amazement. Serena Durand. You are the one I want. I choose you. Will you marry me? Ash's bottom lip wobbled, as he finished asking that all-important question. Serena's hand clasped tighter around her mouth and she squealed through her fingers. She froze on the spot though, not quite believing it. It was freezing, but that wasn't having much of an effect on her. It was her emotions playing a huge role in her current state. She had dreamt of this day for years, but now it was finally happening, she just didn't know how to react. Ash waited patiently with kind eyes and gave Serena the time she needed, even though it was absolute torture for him. He clenched his jaw up anxiously. The only thing anyone could hear for a while was the blustery wind of the night and the faint sound of "Last Christmas" playing in the restaurant. Serena's eyes shifted over to her mother's, to seek some sense to this all and check this was actually real and not just a fantasy. Grace simply just nodded at her and prompted her to answer, with a wide grin on her face. It really wasn't much of a decision at all in all honesty, but having her mother's blessing meant the world to her. And now she was ready. There was only one word screaming in her head now. She took her hand off her mouth and then there was no stopping it blurting out, for the whole restaurant to hear. Oh, yes. 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 1,000 times, yes. Serena blushed the deepest of reds and became very giddy. Ash sighed a massive sigh of relief and slowly unclenched his jaw into a relaxing smile, in a slightly delayed reaction. He got back up and was met by a crunching hug from his blushing girlfriend, now officially his fiancée. She clung onto him tight, feeling every positive emotion at once. Ash twirled her around euphorically, and then there was a flurry of applause. And even from some people inside, who had noticed the proposal happening outside, Serena kissed Ash and then held her hand out, wriggling her fingers at him. "Well, aren't you going to put it on my finger, Ash?" "Oh, right. Yes, of course." Ash had got so caught up in the moment that he almost forgot. He took the ring out and slid it carefully onto Serena's ring finger. Now it was truly an engagement ring, and it symbolized a strong promise of commitment for a special day. It was sealed. For tonight. And hopefully forever. Serena admired it and couldn't stop grinning ear to ear. Delia and Grace were first to come over and congratulate them and got a good look at the ring up close. Bonnie and Clement joined the celebrations soon after, and hugs were shared all round. "Okay. Thank you so much for coming, everyone, and making this night so special and perfect. Now, let's have some dessert and really start Christmas off with a bang. I'm still hungry," exclaimed Ash. Everyone laughed, and Serena was happy to see the Ash she knew and loved back. Ash and Serena chose to share a fancy salted caramel cheesecake to celebrate their engagement and fed it to each other, while giggling and feeling high on love. There was such a great family vibe about the night, and as far as Christmases went, this was destined to be the best one they could all remember. "Merry Christmas, everyone," announced Ash, with cheesecake around his mouth. Serena laughed and wiped it off for him with a napkin. Delia smiled, and even though she was still sad that her son had moved out, she couldn't deny that he was well looked after and cared for by an amazing wife-to-be. Grace had similar feelings too, never for one second doubting her daughter's brilliant husband-to-be. Ash raised his glass and everyone hit their glasses together in the middle of the table. It really was. 'Tis the season to be jolly. Indeed. After everything was paid for, they made their way back to the hotel. Serena was daydreaming about marrying Ash already, as they walked behind everyone else, holding hands the whole way back. Then Serena stopped suddenly. "Hey, Ash." "Yes, baby? I can't wait to be your wifey, you know." She giggled like she was a little girl again, dreaming of her Prince Charming arriving and asking for her hand in marriage, like a Disney fairy tale. "Oh, I can't wait to make you my wifey. It's just you and me, baby. You're stuck with me, ha," he teased. Ash stuck his tongue out playfully and swung her hand back and forth merrily. Serena stuck her tongue out at him too, and then they continued their evening stroll, under the magical lights of Lumiose City. Christmas Day was only a matter of hours away now, and there was so much love all around to see. A beautiful miracle on the eve of Christmas sparked magic into the winter night. Hark the herald angels sang that night. Glory to a newborn king and queen. A date was to be set next year to wed the two soulmates, in a holy matrimony of bliss. 6 months later, a date in June had been set for the wedding of Ash Ketchum and Serena Durand. They wasted no time at all with it, and everything had been thoroughly prepared for, straight after Christmas last year. Everything was ready for them now. All the invites had been sent out, the venue had been chosen and booked, and outfits were picked out. Serena wanted a traditional wedding, so she was very particular about her wedding dress being nothing too fancy, and she wanted Ash to be quite conservative too. Serena had taken charge on most of the wedding details, and Ash was happy to leave it up to her. All he requested was that the reception be held at the gym, with all of his and Serena's Pokémon present. Well, at least a fair handful of Ash's Pokémon. The rest of the details were trivial to him. All he cared about was making his queen happy and finally fulfilling the wedding of her dreams. He did, however, have a part to play in the selection of the most important roles. They both unanimously agreed that Brock would be Ash's right-hand man on the day and Shauna would be Serena's maid of honor. The ring-bearer didn't take much thought either, as they agreed that Pikachu and Delphox should deliver the rings together, both being their first and most loyal Pokémon. The only slots left to fill after that were the Flower Girl and Page Boy. Even though Serena was very particular about traditions, she insisted Bonnie should be the Flower Girl. She was at least 5 years too old to be one, but they could break a few rules, for the sake of family. Bonnie was still like a little sister to Serena after all, and the Page Boy was, of course, Max, with him being the youngest male at the wedding. As the day finally approached on the 7th of June, everyone was waking up after the hen and stag nights. All of Ash's guy friends had been invited and were absolutely buzzing for him. But Serena's guest list was quite surprising. Amongst the expected bunch were 3 women Serena had previously felt threatened by: Misty, Sophie and Miette. She had beaten all 3 to Ash's affections already, so she felt there was no reason not to invite them. And in a way, it was quite satisfying to have them there, knowing she was the one marrying Ash and that they had failed to tempt him away from her. But she was also still friends with them. Well, maybe not so much Misty. Yet, there was no reason why they couldn't become friends now. The 3 of them being present wasn't the biggest surprise, however. A lot of things had changed since they had last all seen each other. As everyone made their way to the venue, Ash and Serena arriving at different times, of course, the boys and the girls met up outside of the venue. The usual couples linked arms and kissed each other. But there were some very different ones, including a few mystery men. One man who was very recognizable, however, was Tracy, who made his way straight over to Sophie. It wasn't too surprising to most, but some had no clue they were actually together now. It seemed Serena's matchmaking at Brock's wedding had worked perfectly and Sophie had never looked happier in her life. The next man was one only Ash and Tracy would know. Rudy, gym leader of Travita Island, made his way over to Misty and slapped her ass playfully. Misty giggled and kissed him. They had met again in unforeseen circumstances and Rudy had reignited his strong interest in her, to which Misty was very keen to reciprocate. She had well and truly gotten over Ash now. The last surprise of the morning was a dark-haired tall man, nobody knew, who appeared to be with Miette. They didn't kiss or look in love, however, but it was clear they were accompanying each other today. A bit on the side, if you will. All of Serena's previous competition for Ash's heart had completely disappeared. Not that anyone else could possibly have won it though, of course. Serena would have fought tooth and nail for Ash, but she really never needed to. Ash was completely and beautifully meant for her. Most had a partner or a +1, as they entered the venue and took their seats. Even Shauna had a boyfriend now, as he kissed her goodbye and sat down with the others and waited for her. Shauna, of course, was duty-bound to help Serena with her final last-minute adjustments to herself. They had barely seen each other since Serena had left Kalos and their reunion at the Kanto showcases, but their friendship was strong enough to survive that. Serena had made sure to stay in regular contact with Shauna and filled her in with everything she had missed, including the flashy proposal last Christmas. Shauna was brushing Serena's hair when she looked up in the mirror and smiled at her. "Sue. How are you feeling, babe?" "Nervous, very nervous," replied Serena, very instinctively. She laughed shakily. "Peeved. You ain't got nothing to worry about, girl. This is literally gonna be the perfect wedding you see in all of those soppy rom-coms you like. And Ash is the most dedicated guy I've ever seen. You two are so in love, it's sickeningly adorable. Haha. Haha, I know, Shauna. It's just, being so close to marrying him now, after all this time and everything we've been through. It's making my heart thump right out of my chest. It just won't stop beating." "Ah, babe. I get that. But that's all perfectly natural. I'm sure Brock and Olivia felt the same way when they got married. But you'll be fine once you get out there and see him at the altar waiting for you, like a knight in shining armor," joked Shauna, in a sing-songy voice. "Oh, Shauna. Stop it," Serena giggled. "What, that's how you always used to go on about him, before you finally told him how you feel? I heard it all. Remember? All the yearning, indulging in extensive talk of the deepest of fantasies about him." Shauna laughed. "Haha, that's true. I did have my head in the clouds a lot back then." "Oh, you sure did, babe. You were obsessed. But it all worked out in the end, didn't it?" Serena nodded. "And it's only going to get better from here." Serena thanked Shauna for her comforting words. Calming Serena's anxieties with humor was exactly what she needed now, and it allowed her to continue getting ready for the big event. Meanwhile, Ash and Brock had just about finished up their pre-wedding last checks and were making their way down a corridor, towards the front of the venue, where everyone was waiting. Ash had something in his hand as they walked down. "You all right, Ash? Any last-minute jitters?" asked Brock. Ash turned back around, just as his hand reached for the door handle and smiled at his brotherly friend confidently. "You know what? No, I'm good. I was nervous when I woke up today, but now I'm actually here. I just can't wait to marry her." Brock smiled back at him and patted his shoulder proudly. "Well, you're doing much better than I was in this position, and honestly, you and Serena are the strongest couple Olivia and I know, mate. So, you marrying each other really is a no-brainer. You're gonna be so happy together. I just know it, bro." "Thanks, Brocco. I know we are too." Ash was about to walk through, when he paused for a second. He raised his hand up, which was clutching a tattered old hat. But not just any old hat, it was his very first hat, that he had shown Serena all those years ago, before they set off on their showcase journey. It held so many special memories and Ash would never ever let it go for anything. Ash nodded at Brock and then they pushed the doors open. Everyone immediately turned around and clapped and whopped. Half of them almost couldn't believe this was the same Ash they had known many years ago, when they first met him. He hadn't even looked at a girl twice, let alone be romantically interested in any. But now he was about to marry the only one he'd ever noticed and loved unconditionally. Delia and Grace were at the front with Professor Oak and Mr. Mime and looked back at him just as proudly as Brock had done. Especially his mother, who was unsurprisingly already struggling to keep her emotions in check. Professor Oak handed her a tissue as a precaution, but she was determined not to ruin her makeup she spent hours doing, so she declined and held the tears back. On their right was Pikachu and Delphox, who looked just as elated for him. Ash smiled at his oldest friend and put the hat on Pikachu. "Look after that for me please, buddy." Ash patted his head and Pikachu gave him a thumbs up. The hat meant more today than ever before. It was something old for the wedding and represented all of Ash's hopes and dreams for the past, present and future. Ash was ready. He took his position at the front and greeted the registrant waiting for him. Then Brock joined him at his side. Now they were just waiting for the bride. A couple minutes later, Grace's phone suddenly rang. She quickly got up and made her way out. Back in the dressing room, Shauna had just finished brushing Serena's hair. She placed the hairbrush down on the dressing table. Over to the side of it was Serena's queen tiara, that she had not worn since the day she won it. Shauna held it up with two hands and gently placed it on Serena's head. It had been truly fit for her since the day she was crowned, and now it was the crown of a very deserving bride. "There, perfect. You really are worthy of this, you know." "Ah. Thank you, Shauna. I appreciate you saying that, but you could have easily won it too, you know." Shauna smiled and hugged Serena from behind. "Oh, I know. But it's yours and you really do look like a Disney princess when you wear it. So own it, girl." Shauna kissed her cheek and Serena blushed with delight. That was exactly what she wanted to look like. She was just about ready now, but there was still one more thing left. Ash had the something old, and next in the tradition was something blue. It wouldn't take much for anyone to figure out that it was currently tied in her hair right now. The very same ribbon Ash gave her at the pledging tree ceremony. Like Ash's hat, she would never dream of letting go of it, even though it was becoming frayed now. And there was no day more important than today to wear it. Most wouldn't understand the deeper meaning of it, but it was clear to Ash and Serena just what it meant. Serena tightened it on with one last pull, while checking it in the mirror. Then she took a deep breath and stood up. "Okay. I'm ready," she said. Shauna linked her arm with Serena's and escorted her outside, where Grace was waiting to take over. Grace bowed in thanks for everything Shauna had done for her daughter. Shauna bowed back and then went on ahead and took her position to the other side of Brock. "Well, will I do?" asked Serena. She gave Grace a little spin, so she could see how she looked. Grace examined her and then made one final motherly adjustment to the dress, pulling it up a little. "Oh, honey, of course. You look out of this world," gushed Grace. "Oh, thank you, Mama." Grace nodded at her proudly. "So, are you ready to go through now?" asked Grace, holding out her arm. "As ready as I'll ever be, Mama," replied Serena. She seemed to be considerably less nervous than before now. "Okay. This is it then, my darling." "Right, yes, Alan's why." Serena linked her arm with her mother's and stepped over the threshold. Music immediately started playing. Everyone, except Ash, who had to wait a little longer to see her, got up and applauded the charming bride entering the room. She had a veil covering her face, but everyone could tell she was looking $1,000,000, including a very awestruck-looking Tierno, who had a seat nearer the back, beside Trevor. Ash really was a very lucky man. Many men would be turning their heads for Serena right now, and Ash was fighting the urge to do just that. Then the lyrics of the song playing began to kick in, after the instrumental part had finished. She comes in colors everywhere she combs her hair. She's like a rainbow coming, colors in the air, oh, everywhere. She comes in colors. The songs being played today were at the special request of Ash and Serena, and the first few songs as the wedding commenced were Serena's personal choice. Serena walked down the aisle slowly, being careful not to trip on her dress. Max rushed over to lift the end of it off the floor, to assist Serena safely up to the altar. Then Bonnie leapt up from her seat and danced around Serena, sprinkling rose petals up and down the aisle. Serena giggled and thanked Bonnie for her infectious enthusiasm and Max for his help. When Serena had made it the whole way there, with the aid of their services, Bonnie and Max sat back down and were praised by their very proud big siblings. Ash was absolutely giddy, as he looked over to his side, to see his fiancée for the first time today, and grinned wide. Serena turned to Ash too and immediately blushed hard. He looked more handsome than usual, and she really couldn't believe she was marrying someone so unbelievably perfect for her. "Hey, Rena?" whispered Ash. Replied a suddenly, increasingly more nervous Serena. Actually being up here now was terrifying her far more than she ever was before. Just thinking about it, she didn't want to mess a thing up and disappoint her Ash. "You look stunning. Absolutely stunning. Oh, thank you, Ash. You look very handsome yourself." Ash chuckled. "Well, it's a big day, so I did my best." Ash looked over at Serena again and started to notice she was looking petrified. He also saw she was clutching something in her right hand very tightly and shaking ever so slightly. Ash took her left hand and rubbed a thumb on it. "You okay, baby?" Why yeah, just a little nervous." "Ah, no please, don't be. I promise, everything's going to be fine. I'm here now, mon amour." Ash lifted her hand up and kissed it. Serena's eyes twinkled like the puppy dog eyes emoji, and she instantly felt her nerves float away. "Thank you, Ash. I needed to hear that." "No problem, Rena." They looked into each other's eyes, but then the registrant cleared her throat suddenly and the music paused for the cause. Ash and Serena looked away from each other and saw the registrant smiling at them, and then they smiled back at her. "Hello. I'm Gwen and I'll be your registrant for today. Are we ready to begin now?" she asked. "Yes," said both Ash and Serena, confidently. "Okay, let's begin then." Everyone stopped talking and put their full attention forward to Ash and Serena. "Now, we're gathered here today to witness and to celebrate the union of Ash Ketchum and Serena Durand in marriage." Gwen went through all the legal and logistic details of the wedding and asked if they were lawfully free to marry each other, which of course they were. As she was waffling on about the boring stuff, 3 hooded figures snuck in and took a seat at the back, without anyone noticing. Then a big moment came. "Now, if there is any person here present who knows of any lawful impediment to this marriage, then they should declare it now," said Gwen. The room fell silent for a minute, as everyone looked around to see if anyone would say anything. Most knew, Ash in particular had had a few admirers in the past in this room, but it was unlikely they would care much now. Perhaps if they had gotten married 4 or 5 years earlier, there would have been some kind of protest from someone. But not a soul spoke. Misty was arguably the most likely to speak up, but she simply just smiled and rested her head on Rudy's shoulder. After a minute's silence, Gwen continued. "Well, in that case, it is now time for the vows, if you have them prepared." "We do," answered Ash. "Okay, please read yours first, Ash." Okay. Here goes." Ash reached into his pocket and took out a scrunched-up piece of paper. Ash's love for Serena knew no bounds, but there was no way he was going to remember everything off the top of his head, and he wanted to get this right. He cleared his throat. Serena. Rena, he began. "You are the most special, amazing, gorgeous person I have ever met. And most importantly, you're my best friend. You've always been there for me, through my best and worst times. I genuinely don't know where I'd be without you. You're the reason I've achieved all my dreams so far. And my dream right now is to be with you for as long as you want me. Now everyone knows I'm not the best with words, but I love you with all of my heart, Rena. And that can't be expressed with words. Only through kisses, cuddles, laughter, trips to the local mega mart, dates at our favorite places, creating unforgettable memories, standing out together on the balcony over Lumios Tower and all the macaroons I can eat that you bake for me. Everyone laughed. It was always obvious food was the key to Ash's heart, and Serena had been carving a gradual pathway towards it, since their very first days together in Kalos. In more ways than one too. No, but seriously, I mean it all, baby. Describing just how much I love you is almost impossible to say only in words. But I'll say it like this. My greatest passion in life has always been the journeys I've taken flight on. And everyone here knows, I've been on many, many adventures. I mean, I've traveled with most of the people in this room and made so many friends along the way. And I'd be lying if I said I didn't miss all the traveling, but being with you is by far the greatest adventure I could ever dream of. It's an adventure of a lifetime with you, babe. A pleasure and a privilege. From the day we became friends, to the day we became lovers and beyond. And I vow to always be by your side, forevermore. For richer, for poorer, and in sickness and in health. Love you, Rena. Ash put the paper back in his pocket and hoped it was good enough. Serena just stared at him open-mouthed for a second and then shut eyes tightly, to stop herself from crying. Ash. That was so incredibly well written. Your words really spoke to me there, thank you so much. Ash looked down and blushed and even had to stop himself from welling up. Why yeah. You're welcome. I put a lot of effort into it, he said gruffly, trying to keep it together. Ash and Serena had a little silent moment between them, until Gwen continued the ceremony. Okay. That was lovely. Well done, Ash. Now it's your turn, Serena. Right, okay. That's gonna be hard to follow, but here goes. Ash. You are the man of my dreams. Not only are you insanely handsome, you are also the sweetest, kindest man I know. I love how you can be so brilliantly positive about anything and everything, even in the most difficult of times. And you've truly made me who I am today because of that. Because you helped me when I needed you, all those years ago at the summer camp, when we were just 5 years old. You showed kindness to a complete and utter stranger, when you really didn't have to. You saw me in trouble and you were there, like an angel sent from above. So if you don't know this already, you really are my hero. Ash smiled and looked down again, feeling a bit overwhelmed by Serena's words too. And the one thing I remember most about that day, is this handkerchief you gave me, to bandage up my knee. Serena opened her hand up to remind him once again. Not that he needed to be reminded, now he'd known how long Serena had kept it for. But it had still been a while since he last saw it. Ash looked back up and flashbacks of that day immediately played in his mind. And that completed the list of items needed for a traditional wedding. What was particularly special about this item though, was that it doubled as something borrowed and something old at the same time. I kept it all that time, until we met again in Kalos. And I still have it now. As a reminder of all that we've been through together, Ash. But today, I'm using it as a symbol, for the pledge I make to you now. I promise to be yours faithfully and lovingly, for the rest of our days. And I'll always be by your side too, through thick and thin. No matter what. As long as I'm breathing, I will never ever stop loving you, Ash Ketchum. Serena took a deep breath and relaxed into a relieved smile. She was glad to finally be able to say it all, having also given her vows a great deal of thought too. Oh, that definitely topped it, said Ash, giggling and smiling. Well, that was all from the heart, like yours was. And like my ribbon, this means everything to me. Serena held their handkerchief out for Ash to touch. He wrapped his hand around it and then so did Serena from the other end, until their hands touched in the middle. Ash lowered his head down to kiss her hand. And you're my everything, baby. Everyone awed and marveled at how adorable they were. Then there was a little ripple of applause. Ah, well I have to say, that's one of the sweetest things I've ever seen in my whole time as a registrant. Your future together certainly looks bright. Ash and Serena thanked Gwen and then she continued. Okay. With the vows finished, it is now time to conclude the ceremony, with your final words of commitment to each other. Now, please repeat after me. Ash, you first. Ash nodded and repeated everything word for word. I call upon these persons here present, To witness that I, Ash Ketchum, do take thee, Serena Durand, to be my lawful wedded wife. It was Serena's turn now, as she repeated just as Ash did. I call upon these persons here present, to witness that I, Serena Durand, do take thee, Ash Ketchum, to be my lawful wedded husband. Excellent. Now it is time to seal the contract of love you have just bound together, with the presenting of the rings. Continued Gwen. If the ring bearers could present them now, please. Ash and Serena beckoned for Pikachu and Delphox to come up and deliver them. They both had the rings on a pillow and held them up for them. Delphox had Ash's ring and Pikachu had Serena's. Ash and Serena took the rings and thanked them. Then the two Pokémon sat back down. Okay. Now, repeat after me again, Ash. Serena Durand. I give you this ring, as a symbol of all that we have promised, and all that we share. Ash slipped the first ring on Serena's ring finger, and then once it was all the way on, Gwen asked Serena to repeat the same thing after her too. Ash Ketchum. I give you this ring, as a symbol of all that we have promised, and all that we share. Serena completed the ceremony and slipped the second ring on Ash's ring finger, and then it was all confirmed. You have both just made a declaration of a lifelong promise to one another, forged by law, in the presence of your witnesses, esteemed guests, and it therefore gives me great pleasure to pronounce you are now husband and wife. And now, ladies and gentlemen, I give you Mr. and Mrs. Ketchum. Congratulations. You may kiss the bride. Gwen raised her arms into the air jubilantly. Ash turned to Serena and lifted the veil up, and then there was the face Ash had fallen so deeply in love with. He almost lost his breath, but he needed all of it now. Ash wrapped his arms around Serena and she wrapped hers around him, to seal the marriage, with the most passionate kiss they had ever had. Everyone stood and clapped the newlyweds, and then the music started again. But this time, it was Serena's favorite song. Somebody crowd me with love, somebody force me to care. Somebody make me come through, I'll always be there. As frightened as you to help us survive, being alive, being alive, being alive, being alive. Ash and Serena pulled apart and held hands, as they turned back to everyone else. They had the biggest, cheesiest smiles on their faces, as they took the moment in, full of pure, uncontrollable emotion. As did their mothers, as they blew into tissues and wiped away tears of joy. Delia couldn't hold them back now, and then that set off Grace in no time. Ash and Serena were officially man and wife now, as they skipped happily down the aisle, with Bonnie throwing more and more petals up into the air and all around them. They were about to go through the big double doors, leading outside, when Ash stopped suddenly and his smile faded. He had just noticed the three hooded figures at the back and frowned. Serena hadn't noticed yet, though, and looked over at Ash worriedly. Hey. What's wrong, Ash? Nothing, babe. I just don't think these three are on the guest list. Who are you? Questioned Ash. Everyone turned around to see what was going on and looked very confused at the presence of the mystery, uninvited guests. The three figures sniggered and seemed to be enjoying the attention on them. Oh, I think you know exactly who we are, said a raspy, female voice. No, I don't. Show yourselves, retorted Ash. Ooh, the suspense is killing me. I can't wait any longer, said a high-pitched, male voice. Ash raised an eyebrow. Let's show him then, said the last one. Ash was starting to recognize the voices now, and then three cloaks flew high up into the air. Prepare for trouble, and make it double. It was none other than Team Rocket, as they recited their motto and shocked everyone. No one had heard, or seen any sign of them for years. The last time Ash and Serena saw them, was just before he won the league trophy. He had always wondered where they had got to, but he just assumed they had given up on their mission, or changed their ways. But here they were now, on his wedding day. After all this time. For unknown reasons. Team Rocket. What are you doing here? You weren't invited. Pikachu and Delphox immediately rushed to their trainer's defense and jumped in between them and Team Rocket, ready to fight. But then Team Rocket suddenly got on their knees and started begging. Oh, please. Please. Let us stay, pleaded James. We just wanted to see you happy, after all of these years. Believe it or not, we've come to actually care about you, twerp. Yeah, and we're sorry for everything, added Jessie. Since you won the league and settled down with the twerpette, we haven't done anything wrong. Well, maybe a few things, But we're trying to change, we promise, so please let us stay. I don't know, pondered Ash. We promise we're telling the truth. Cross our hearts. Blurted out Meowth. We've watched over you every now and then and saw how happy you were with your torped and we didn't want to ruin it, honest. Yes. That's the complete truth. I mean, who are we to get in the way of true love, cried James, dramatically. Exactly, I always thought you two would make a great couple, said Jessie. Well. Thanks I guess, said Ash, awkwardly, but how'd I know this isn't just another sneaky plan to steal Pikachu? Pika, Pika, shouted Pikachu in agreement. Meowth tried to calm Pikachu down. Hey, chill, buddy, it's really not like that at all. We won't cause any trouble, honest. We just came for the reception party. Yeah, we just wanted to be part of your big day, said James, twiddling his thumbs. Oh, really? Questioned Ash. Yes, really, weirdly enough, it wouldn't feel right if we weren't part of it, considering the history we share. And if we were to try anything, you'd just send us blasting off anyway. Especially now you're a Pokemon master, said Jessie. That's true, I suppose. They had a convincing argument, to be fair, and seemed pretty genuine. Ash stroked his chin and then Serena grabbed his arm. Jessie's got a point, babe. If they're lying, then we'll just send them blasting off like always. So, let's just give them the benefit of the doubt, yeah. Well okay then, but any sign of funny business? Oh, no, said James. None at all, said Jessie. All right, you can come to the party. Thank you, said Team Rocket, all together. They got back to their feet and shook Ash and Serena's hands to congratulate them. Ash shook his head in disbelief that this was even happening. He told Pikachu to stay close though, as he still didn't trust them, regardless. Gwen looked bewildered on the other side of the room, but quickly re-established some order to the day. Okay. Well, that's the ceremony over. If you'd all like to head over to the reception party across the road now, please. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. Everyone followed the newlyweds over to the Celadon gym, gossiping along the way about Team Rocket and whether they believed them or not. It wasn't really that important, though. All anyone wanted to do now was party. The gym had been rented out for the day, by Ash's request. It was his workplace, but also like a second home to him by now. Since moving to Celadon, he had been working as an assistant gym leader and even filled in for a few gym battles when the gym leader wasn't around. Being a league champion, he had no trouble in applying for it. But for today, they had converted a large room into a reception hall. It was decorated half and half, with the left side draped in blue banners and balloons and the right with pink ones. On the tables were Pikachu and Delphox-themed napkins, cups and plates, each according to their trainer's side. The food was mainly of Ash's choosing, to no one's surprise, as everyone salivated at the abundance of different things to eat, laid out in front of them. Team Rocket in particular were very impressed by it all and couldn't wait to dive in. But they were respectable and waited patiently. Bonnie and Max were keeping a close eye on them, as Team Rocket grinned a little mischievously at them. Meanwhile, Ash and Serena had made their way to the very end of the room, to take their throne-like seats. Tracy was tasked with the music again, as he was at Ash's victory party. He connected his laptop to a speaker and began playing the first track. Then everyone chatted and socialized, until Ash and Serena were ready to make their post-wedding speech. Ash stood up to speak first. He signaled to Tracy for the music to be paused and picked up a microphone. Everyone turned their attention to him. Hello, everyone, we'd just like to say a few words before the party starts, he announced. Thank you so much for coming to our special day. We really appreciate and love every single one of you. Thank you for being such amazing friends to us over the years. And that's it from me. Now, over to Ree, my wife. Everyone clapped and whistled in response. Then Ash handed the microphone over to Serena. She took it and stood up. Okay. I'll keep this short and sweet. Firstly, I want to reiterate what Ash just said. And I just want to say thank you to all of Ash's friends, who made me feel welcome. I didn't know most of you before his victory party, but Ash, I mean my. Serena looked over at Ash and smiled. My husband really does pick good company. And thank you to all the friends and family I already had along the way, for always supporting me and being there for me. But let's not get too soppy now. Serena handed the microphone back over to Ash. Haha, well, my wife and I will try not to get too emotional. Everyone laughed. But there are two people that we would like to say a very special, big thank you to. And that's the best man and the maid of honor. Brock and Shauna. Would you guys like to say a few words? Brock put his hand up first, got up and walked over to them. Ash handed him the microphone and sat back down. Well. If I'm being honest with you, folks, I never thought Ash would ever settle down like this. He's always been a bit of a thrill seeker for adventure. And while I was busy trying to find my girl, he was more interested in becoming a Pokemon master. Everyone sniggered, some more than others, as they saw it firsthand. But in all seriousness, he's really grown up a lot since I knew him as a kid, and I'm super proud of him for everything he's achieved. He's certainly come a long way. And I'd go as far as to say, he's like a little brother to me. Everyone awed at that, and I'm just so happy he's found his real happiness with you, Serena. I mean, I didn't think any girl could tempt him away from traveling and gym battles. But you're clearly very special to him. I mean, he really couldn't stop talking about you and was constantly asking me for advice when you first got together. Ash laughed nervously and blushed a little. Ash just really loves you, Serena. And we can all see how much you love him too. And anyone who makes our Ash as happy as you do is surely the perfect wife for him. So here's to many happy years together. Congratulations to Ash and Serena. Brock raised his glass and everyone clapped and toasted to them too. Then Brock hugged Ash and sat back down. Shauna walked up next and took the microphone. She smiled and waved shyly, not knowing most of the people in the room. But her boyfriend gave her a thumbs up in support, to give her the confidence to speak. She smiled and cleared her throat. Well, okay. Where do I start? For those of you who don't know me, I'm Serena's best friend, Shauna. I competed alongside her in her journey to become showcase royalty. And guess who was also there with her through it the whole time? Everyone murmured the same thing. That's right, Ash. Wherever Serena is, Ash usually isn't far behind. And as Serena's bestie, I can tell you for free that this girl never, ever, stopped talking to me about him, and still does now actually. Everyone laughed. Serena looked down, feeling a little embarrassed, but smirked, because she knew it was true. So naturally, it really didn't take me long to figure out that she was head over heels in love with this man. Now she, of course, didn't admit it straight away, she didn't tell a soul. But it was so obvious to see, that she had to admit it eventually. And I kept telling her, time and time again, just tell him. Just tell him how you feel, girl. But it wasn't until we met again in Kanto, that she finally did confess to him. And thank God she did. Cause there's no one else I know that deserves to be as happy as she is now, with Ash. Serena truly is such a beautiful human being, and like Brock said, she and Ash are just the perfect fit. They're both very good people. And they've just always bounced off each other and brought the very best out of the other. Especially when Serena became Kanto Queen. So if Serena is a queen, Ash surely is her king. Shauna turned to face the king and queen. Ash. Serena. I wish you both a very happy marriage. The sky's the limit for you two. So, continue to be the very best you can be together, and congratulations. Shauna raised her glass. To days to come, she signed off. Shauna put the microphone down, and then Serena lifted her head back up and gave her a very emotional look. She could flood into tears right now, but she held it back and just mouthed a thank you. Instead, Shauna blew her a kiss and nodded at her. To days to come, repeated everyone. Okay. Thank you, Brock. And thank you, Shauna, began Ash. It really has been the best day so far, and it's only going to get better. 'Cause it's time to party now. Ash punched the air excitedly. Everyone cheered, and then the music was turned back up to the max. They all ate as much as they pleased, and then Ash and Serena took to the dance floor for their first dance. It started with a slow dance in the most traditional way, which again, was exactly what Serena wanted. But then after that, the rule book was completely thrown out of the window, to Ash's delight. He didn't mind the slow dance at all and still liked it, but he just wanted to have fun now, with no more traditions. Tracy's playlist remixed smoothly into pop songs that got everyone moving on the dance floor. Serena was happy for it too, as it loosened her and everyone up. Getting married was a special thing of course, but a lot of hard work had to go into it all, so it was a massive relief to be able to just enjoy themselves now. The gym turned into a bit of a nightclub, as everyone, including a very joyful Team Rocket, boogied down and swayed to the music. Then one particular banger came on, which sent the place into a frenzy. "'Cause all I need is a beauty and a beat who can make my life complete. It's all about you when the music makes you move. Baby, do it like you do 'cause you body rock girl, I can feel your body rock. I. Take a bow you on the hottest ticket now, I. We gonna party like it's 3012 tonight, I wanna show you all the finer things in life. So just forget about the world, we young tonight, I'm coming for ya, I'm coming for ya." This one was certainly for all the couples, as they got up close and personal with one another. Serena even got a little carried away and grinded against Ash a little. It wasn't like anyone would notice anyway, amongst the excitement and wiggling limbs. And she was the bride, so she figured she could do whatever she liked on her wedding day. She poked her tongue out at Ash and winked. Ash was enjoying it just as much as her and even pulled her in towards him a little closer, until he had her waist under his full control. Serena giggled cheekily and Ash too along with her. They were having a blast and didn't have a single care in the world, singing the song lyrics to each other and allowing themselves to be as silly as they wanted to be with each other. While some danced, Max decided to get a camera out and film everyone dancing. He figured there would be a few funny moments Ash and Serena could look back on later in the future and laugh about. Memories were already being created and captured though, as Delia and Grace had been taking pictures all day of their son and daughter. It was cliché to say and they probably didn't even exist, but this was as good as a perfect wedding as they could get. Misty even got her happy ending too, as she finally caught the bouquet this time. Rudy had always wanted Misty from the day he laid eyes on her, so now another wedding could definitely be on the cards soon. A couple hours later, after lots of dancing, drinking and nibbling on nibbles, the reception party was ending. No one wanted it to end, but it had to end sometime and it was evident to see, by some of the drunken dancing. From Sophie and Misty in particular. That was on display on the dance floor now. What was perhaps most surprising though, was the fact that Team Rocket were genuinely 100% true to their word and their intentions were completely pure, for once. Well, either that, or they were just having too much fun to care about anything else. Bonnie and Max had been squinting their eyes at them for a while and had tried to suss them out. But now they were having fun too and there was nothing but good vibes surrounding the whole place. Ash and Serena were back at the front on their thrones. Serena rested her head on Ash's shoulder, while he stroked her hair. "Hey, babe," said Serena. Ash looked down at her. "Yeah? It still hasn't sunk in, you know," Ash laughed. What? What hasn't sunk in? That you're actually my husband now. There was a point I never thought I'd even have a chance in hell of being your girlfriend. But now we're actually, really married. I just can't believe it." Ash laughed again. "Oh, Rena. I know I was a clueless idiot before about how you felt about me. But the truth is, I've never ever considered being with anyone else. It's always been you, Rena. Even if it took me a while to realize it. So believe it, baby. We really are endgame now." Ash kissed her head. You're so fucking sexy when you talk like that, Ash." Serena bit her lip and moaned. Hee. "Well, we both know it doesn't take much for me to turn you on now, does it?" teased Ash. Serena lifted her head off Ash and scoffed. "Hey. That's cheeky," she teased back. Serena slapped his chest and smirked. Ash smirked back, full of smugness. "Oh, don't give me that look, it's not like you can keep your hands off me either, you know. Especially if I'm in a nice dress like this." Serena laid back in her chair and winked. Ash was about to open his mouth to protest, but he really couldn't argue with that. He found himself staring at her and groaning instead. I can't lie, you do look really good right now." Ash bit his lip and Serena grinned. "Oh, I can't wait to get you all alone later tonight on our honeymoon." Ash raised an eyebrow at the enticing prospect of honeymoon sex. He licked his lips. Alone, huh?" he said, failing to resist his tempting wife. "Yup. All alone. All night, baby," she elongated slowly. "I've got the perfect wedding gift waiting for you." Serena rubbed her hand across his lap, under the table. Even though nothing was actually said, the subtle flirting was getting absolutely filthy now, and the marriage had to be consummated, sooner rather than later. Plus, getting married hadn't stopped the bubbling chemistry between them one bit. Okay. Well, does that sound good to you? Ash tried to think about something else, but it was impossible now Serena had said all that. He bit his tongue and contemplated it all. All right, yeah, should we just go now then? Serena grinned and giggled. Oh, I thought you'd never ask. Come on, let's go. Ash nodded and stood up. He extended his hand to help Serena up. Like so many times before, Ash grabbed Serena's hand and ran out with her, onto their next journey together. Everyone was surprised to see them leaving so suddenly and rushed off after them. The final song of the night played, as they eloped onwards together, and the melody followed them outside. So much so, that the lyrics became ingrained into their heads, as a reminder of the promise they had made to each other on this day and what was to come next in married life. Anything you feel, put it all on me, all of your thoughts, I want everything. And when you get sad, like you do sometimes, put it all on me. Put it all on me, I'll lift you when you're feeling low. I'll hold you when the night gets cold, you'll never have to be alone. And that's all you need to know, no love lost, we've got you and I. No clouds, we shoot 'em out the sky, you'll never have to be alone. And that's all you need to know, and that's all you need to know. And that's all you need to know. The song summed everything up in a lyrical, never-ending, never-dying love, such is the way of a long, happy marriage. Ash's Charizard was waiting for them outside and excitedly roared at them, blowing fire into the air, that swirled into fiery love hearts. Serena clapped for him in appreciation, and then Ash ran up to hug him and thanked him for coming. He'd agreed to be their chariot and fly them over to the airport, as their honeymoon could only ever be where it all began for them. Ash mounted himself onto Charizard's back first and then helped Serena up. She held on tight to Ash's waist and put her head on his shoulders. Then Charizard flapped his wings and took to the air. Everyone looked up and shielded their eyes from the hot summer sun, as Charizard created a blazing eclipse. Leaving so soon, guys? Shouted Brock, smiling up at them. Haha. Well, you know me, Brocco. Once I get the itch for adventure, I just gotta go. And now we're going on the greatest one yet. Brock chuckled. Oh, of course, I wouldn't expect anything less from you, my friend. He sent Ash off with a salute and Ash gave him one back, then Shauna ran forwards. Take care, you guys, enjoy your honeymoon, she shouted. Yeah, you two look after each other now, implored Delia. Of course we will, bye, Mum, said Ash. Yes, please do, take care, Serena, take care, Ash, I'll see you both soon, chimed in Grace. We will, bye, Mama, bye Shauna, bye everyone, shouted Serena. Charizard was about to take off, but just then, Professor Oak came running out towards them and waved his hands up frantically. Wait, don't forget your wedding gift from me. Charizard stopped immediately, and then Ash looked over to Professor Oak. Oh, what is it, Professor? Asked Ash. Here, catch. Professor Oak threw a Pokeball up at them and Ash caught it. He looked down at it and then back at the professor. Huh. What Pokemon is this then? Oh, you'll see, I thought it could be something new. Professor Oak winked at them. Oh, okay, I see, thanks, Professor, bye. Ash and Serena waved at him and then Professor Oak said his goodbyes too and waved back at them. Merci, called out Serena. It was time to go now, as Charizard began to fly up high again. Then Ash and Serena waved goodbye to everyone one last time. And with that, they took to the skies in a flash, ready for whatever was lying ahead of them. A new horizon awaited. Yet, being married really didn't change anything at all. They were still going to be their same old selves and their relationship wasn't going to be too much different either. It was just solidified further now, and that could only pave the way to other major life events together. They were simply young and in love, and there was still plenty more to come for the two adventurers, zooming through life, full speed ahead. The world was truly their oyster now, and it was all at their fingertips. Beyond Kanto and Kalos, even, next stop. Everywhere. A year later, Ash and Serena had settled tremendously well into married life. The honeymoon was a very enjoyable one for many reasons. It started off in Kalos, but then they decided to go traveling all around the world a little, before returning back to their normal working lives. And of course, that involved a lot of quality time together in between. They were still being super careful though. The topic of having kids had barely arisen in truth, but it definitely wasn't something they were ruling out. They still had plenty of time, only being 23 and 24 years old at this point. But right now, their biggest battle was trying to stay cool in the summer heat. Thankfully, they were wealthy enough to afford aircon, but even that didn't keep the temperature down. Ash was slumped over the couch in the living room, with just a vest and shorts on. What was good about this summer though, was that there was a big sporting event happening, to distract everyone from the heat. The FIFA World Cup was in full swing and heading into the knockout rounds. By chance, Japan and France were currently playing each other for a spot in the quarterfinals. Ash was never a big football fan, but he always loved watching Japan play and supported them whenever they were playing in a big tournament like this. Miraculously, Japan had gone 1-0 up, despite France being the better team on paper. Ash was on the edge of his seat, as Japan were closing in on goal. The striker weaved his way through the box and sat the defender down in. "Goal!" shouted Ash. Serena came out of the kitchen, with freshly baked macaroons and ice cream. She was wearing a cute summer dress and looking radiant. Ash was still celebrating the goal to take notice, but Serena couldn't care less what was happening in the game. She still found it amusing though and giggled at how invested her husband was getting into the game. Ash was so into the game, that he hadn't even noticed the treats, until Serena wafted them in his face. "Oh, thanks, Rena." Ash took some macaroons and a bowl of ice cream. "You're welcome, baby." Serena sat down and watched it with him. After all, marriage was all about compromise and Ash always found time to watch things Serena liked too. 5 minutes later, the referee blew for half-time. Ash looked over at Serena with a big grin on his face. "So, 2-0, who would have thought?" he teased. "Oh, well, yeah. That's pretty impressive, but France will come back in the second half." She winked at him and Ash chuckled. Serena really didn't mind what happened. She was happy Japan was winning for Ash, but at the same time, she liked the idea of having a little competitiveness between him. "Haha. We'll see." They continued to watch, as the second half kicked off. Within minutes, France had pulled one back and then with 15 minutes to go, they drew level. Ash was gobsmacked and was looking a little stressed now, not half as confident as he was before. Serena giggled and stuck her tongue out at him. "I don't know much about football, but I told ya." Ash just shook his head and laughed it off. "It's okay. If we just hold on, maybe we can take it to penalties." Unfortunately for Ash and Japan, it really wasn't likely, as France mounted attack after attack. And then in the most cruel fashion, they scored a last-minute winner. Serena cheered, whilst Ash just groaned in anguish. "Ah, sorry, babe. You still did well though, and hey, you can support France now for me for the rest of the tournament." "Yeah, I guess so." Ash was looking a bit crestfallen, so Serena scooched up closer to him and rubbed his back soothingly. "Hey, don't look so down, sweetie. Here, have a macaroon." Serena picked his favorite flavor and fed it to him, but that didn't do much to lift his mood, as he munched on it, like it was a sour lemon. Ash frowned and let out a frustrated groan. Serena frowned too. She didn't want an unhappy husband. If Ash wasn't happy, neither was she. So she thought about how she could make him feel better and then a naughty idea entered her mind. The macaroons and ice cream were put to one side. "Okay. I know you're upset about the match, babe. But I could cheer you up, if you want." She looked at him a little seductively and trailed her hand over his shorts slowly. Ash looked down at his groin area and then at Serena. She had his attention. "Oh, how? Oh, you know. Just some tender loving care. To take your mind off it." Serena's hand moved over to his crotch and cupped Ash's balls. Then she started to rub and looked into his eyes. Ash's eyes widened in surprise, but he didn't tell her stop. It felt too good. He groaned in pleasure and then even louder, when Serena leant forward and began placing kisses on his face and down to his neck. Then she suddenly stopped and pulled herself away from him. "Hey, why did you stop? I was enjoying that." Serena smiled and got up. "Well, if you want me, you'll have to catch me first." Ash squinted his eyes at her and then laughed with a playful look on his face. He was willing to play her little game to get what he wanted. All right, then. Ready or not? Here I come. He leapt off the couch, making Serena squeal, and then she ran upstairs, full of exhilaration. Ash played her game, just as she wanted, and chased her up the stairs. Serena excitedly ran into the bedroom, enjoying every second of it. Ash ran in straight after her and prowled around her, like a hungry lion, trying to catch her. The chase didn't last long though, as Serena gave in pretty easily after a few minutes and let Ash pin her up against a wall. And then they were in fits of cute giggles, until it got serious and they feasted their eyes on each other. They both knew what they wanted now. No more games. Serena could have given Ash what he wanted downstairs, but it was so much more fun this way. All right, you caught me, so what are you gonna do to me? Asked Serena. She looked very submissive now. Her breathing was heavy and her heart was pounding rapidly. Serena just loved not knowing what was coming next. Ash just stared at her and then pulled a strap off her dress. It seemed as if he was going to undress her completely right away, and then he suddenly flipped her around off the wall. He kissed her hard and then pushed her onto the bed. Serena couldn't stop herself from enjoying it, even if it made her a little too crazy on lust. But she was way past caring about that by now. She just loved being dominated by him, and it was getting her wet quick. And her face said it all, as she looked absolutely thrilled at what Ash was doing to her. He pinned her down onto the bed and continued kissing her. It didn't take long until all their clothes were ripped off and Serena was ready to nurse Ash's distress from the match. She didn't need an excuse to do it at all, but Serena figured she was just being a good wife, helping her husband blow off some steam. So she put her mouth to good use, until she had to come up for air. Serena got off Ash and kissed him. Ash didn't say a word, as he remained laid back with a satisfied face, that had stayed that way for the last couple minutes. He was well and truly pleased, at least for now anyway. Judging by your face, I can tell you really enjoyed that, said Serena. Oh, you have no idea. You're so good at it, Rena. Well, I always do my best for you, my king. But I bet you're still really frustrated about the match, aren't you? Teased Serena. Oh, yeah, I am. I really am. Well, Serena spread her legs open for him. Just take it all out on me then, baby. I'm ready whenever you are. Ash grunted and got on top of her, without hesitation. He didn't need any convincing. And then within seconds, the springs of the mattress began squeaking loudly. Since getting married, they had literally been doing it like rabbits. Before it was maybe once every couple of weeks or so, but now it was at least once a week. It took a while for Ash to get there and to somewhat match Serena's sex drive, but he just couldn't control himself lately. And Serena was always in the mood for it. During the first week of their honeymoon alone, they must have done it about 10 times. It was becoming an addiction at this point, but a very healthy one they both needed, like a strong tonic for them. Sometime later, Ash and Serena had finished up and were feeling very hot and sticky in bed. They remained in silence for a while, as they were still recovering from their orgasms. Serena took a little longer to find her breath, but finally spoke when Ash got up to go to the bathroom. Hey, hang on, mister. Are you feeling better now? Oh, yeah, much better. I really needed that. Thanks, babe. Ash blew a kiss to her and Serena blew one back. No problem, handsome. I definitely needed that too. And especially as you're so on fire lately. You're really giving it to me good and I just can't get enough. I mean, it's not just this heat that's hot. Phew. Serena fanned her hand over her face, but that wasn't enough. So, she stretched over to the bedside cabinet to pick up a mini fan. She turned it on and cooled down, as her messy sex hair blew sideways. Haha. Well, you're my wife and you deserve the best. Ash winked and went into the bathroom. Serena laid back down on the bed and sprawled her arms out, with the happiest of expressions on her face. She felt so lucky to be married to such a great man. True happiness was rare to find for most, but Serena felt like she'd hit the jackpot. She closed her eyes and ascended to cloud 9, but then she heard a faint noise behind the door. Serena's eyes snapped back open immediately and she quickly got up to see what it was. She opened the door and looked down. Serena gasped. A baby growlith was yawning and rubbing its eyes. Sorry, Bubba. Did we wake you up? Growlith yapped at her in response. Oh, well come on. I'll take care of you now. Serena picked him up and brought him over to the bed. Then she started stroking him gently and mothering him kindly. Growlithe was, of course, a very new addition to the family. He was the Pokemon Professor Oak had given them as a wedding gift. But Ash and Serena were obviously very occupied on their honeymoon, so they did not meet him until they got back home. But as soon as they laid eyes on him, they had loved and cared for him ever since, and later that day, they called Professor Oak to thank him for giving Growlithe to them. The professor was more than happy to see they had taken to him so well, but one thing he said had stuck with Serena to this day. He said, looking after a baby Pokemon together could be good practice, for if they ever decided to have kids of their own one day. Serena had always wanted kids, but she had been enjoying herself so much with Ash over the years, that it wasn't such a big thing for her at the moment. Plus, she was a little anxious about how Ash would feel about it. Still, it didn't matter too much for where they were currently at in life. And she wasn't even sure she was ready to be a mother. Even so, both she and Ash were like a mum and dad to Growlithe, nicknamed Growly affectionately, already, and what was really special about it was that they shared and trained him together. Ash would often take him to the gym and Serena would even teach him how to perform, from time to time. They had even given him his own little room downstairs and given him everything a little Growlithe could want. Ash came out of the bathroom and joined them on the bed. "Oh, hey, Growly. Come here, boy." Growlithe pounced on Ash excitedly and nuzzled his head into his chest. Ash returned the love right away and stroked him behind the ears and cuddled him. Having him around was a real pleasure for them, and it certainly helped that he was very lovable and adorable. The summer was a long and hot one, but it was perhaps the best one yet, for the newlyweds' married life in general was getting better and better for them through the days and weeks and months. And life only continued to be good through the autumn, festive season and into the new year. Now it was 11:59 p.m. on December the 31st, as Ash and Serena watched the Celadon city clock tick in the town center. It edged closer and closer to 12, and then everyone started to count down from 10 out loud, in excitement of the new glorious year to come. And then as it hit midnight, the city bell donged 12 times, welcoming in the fresh new start, like a reset throughout the entire region. Fireworks erupted over and above them, as Ash and Serena wrapped themselves together into a tight hug and kissed each other, with a smile on their lips. "Happy New Year, Rena. I love you." "Happy New Year, Ash. I love you too." "You know, this is gonna be the best year yet. I just know it," said Ash, optimistically. "Yeah, I think so too." Actually, they pulled apart and just held hands, to admire the firework display in its full majesty. It was a very starry night too, as a shooting star fizzed through the dark new sky. There was nothing but joy surrounding them, and everything was wonderful. Until Serena suddenly let go of Ash's hand and grabbed her stomach and groaned. Ash immediately shot his head over to her in concern. "Hey. What's up, Rena? Are you feeling okay?" Serena winced and then shook it off, like it was nothing, but she was still struggling a little. "Why, yeah. It's nothing too bad. Just feeling a little nauseous all of a sudden. Probably just something bad I ate at the New Year's Eve party earlier. I should be fine." "Oh, okay. Well, let's get you home anyway, babe. Come on." Serena nodded, feeling it was better to call it a night, rather than risk it. So Ash grabbed her hand again and walked her home. Thankfully, Serena felt a little better when they got back, but she still decided to go to bed earlier than planned. Ash joined her and made her a hot water bottle to calm her stomach pains. The next morning, Ash awoke to an empty left side of the bed. He panicked a little, just as Serena had done some years back, at the Kalos Hotel. But then he heard her being sick in the bathroom. He was initially relieved she hadn't disappeared anywhere, but he was now more worried than ever about her. She clearly still wasn't feeling well, and all of this was so out of the blue, with no real explanation at all. Ash got up and knocked on the door. "Morning, Rena." "Oh, morning, Ash. Are you okay in there?" "Yeah, I will be. Don't worry." "Okay. Well, do you need anything?" "No, I'm okay. Thanks anyway, babe." "All right. Well, just let me know if you need me. Remember, I promise to always look after you in my vows, especially when you're sick." "Ah. I know, baby." But Serena flushed the toilet and opened the bathroom door. "I'm feeling better now. Must have just been the sushi I ate at the party last night." Maybe yeah. Just as long as you're sure you're okay now? Yes. Yes. I'm fine. Okay, but maybe you should rest? Just in case? Serena laughed. You're sweet, babe. But there's far too much to do today. Don't forget Brock and Olivia are coming over for dinner tonight. Yeah, but I could prepare everything while you res. Haha. Nonsense. No offense, mon amour, but you can only cook basic things and you're not the best at cleaning. Ash raised a finger and opened his mouth to defend himself, but realized his wife was dead right and gave in straight away. Okay, yeah. Fair enough. You're right, sorry. He scratched the back of his head sheepishly. It's okay, babe. We'll just do it together, yeah? Sure. But if you feel sick again, I'm taking over, all right? Serena hesitated to answer, but then gave in too. I guess so. Promise me, said Ash, sternly. Serena sighed. Okay, I promise. She shook her head, but still appreciated it. Thank you. Ash kissed her cheek and then they got started on the preparations. They spent the whole afternoon getting the place ready and cooking a full roast dinner, ready for their incoming guests. Everything was fully prepared by the time they heard a knock at the door. Ash welcomed Brock and Olivia in and took their coats, to hang up in the cloakroom. Then Serena brought the dinner out and welcomed them in too. They sat down and began to eat. But they didn't just come to eat, as there was plenty to talk about over the dinner table and Brock and Olivia had a big new development in their life to share. So, how's little Leo? Asked Serena. Oh, he's doing really well. He was just struggling with his baby teeth coming in over Christmas. But he's through the worst of it now, poor baby, said Olivia. Yeah. Our little man is a fighter all right and he's feeling a lot better now, added Brock. The only problem we had on the way here was just that he was a bit clingy when we dropped him off with his grandparents. But he's got to get used to them sometime. Ah. Well, I'm glad he's feeling better now. We'll have to come and see him soon, said Serena. Ash had a mouthful of food in his mouth, so just smiled and put his thumbs up in agreement. Of course. You could even babysit one day, if you want, said Olivia. Serena nodded and continued eating. So, how's work going, Serena? Last I heard, you were quitting the bakery and trying to start your showcase school up, right? Oh, yeah, it's actually coming together now. Just before Chrysanthemums, I got the lease to an old abandoned building round the corner, for the school. So, I'm just waiting on my PGCE to teach now. I studied a course in between working to get it. So once that's all confirmed, the school could be open as early as next month. This year should be a good one for me and all my aspirations. Oh, brilliant. That's amazing progress, Serena. We're really happy for you, said Brock. Thanks, Brock. I just hope little girls actually want to come. Ash finally took a break from eating and joined the conversation at a timely moment. Are you kidding, Rena? Don't forget, you're only the first Kanto queen, ever. There'll be queues and queues of them wanting to get in and learn from the best. Ah. Thanks, Ash. I appreciate that. Yeah. I'm sure Ash is right, Serena, said Brock. And it's a really good career choice for you. To help kids achieve their dreams is very admirable. Olivia gave her approval too, which made Serena feel more confident about pursuing it further in the coming weeks. Then it went quiet for a while, until Brock looked over at Ash and grinned. So, what about you, bro? How's the gym work going? Ash grinned back at him. Well, I'm glad you asked, Brocco, 'cause I actually have an announcement to make. Serena immediately turned her head in curiosity and ate slower. Oh, okay. What is it, dude? Well, I haven't told anyone this yet. Not even Rena. But, the gym leader is retiring later this year. Everyone stopped eating and leant forwards, in eager anticipation of where this was going. And, asked Serena. Ash excitedly banged his knife and fork on the table, to build up suspense. And, I've agreed to take over. I'm gonna be a gym leader, guys. Everyone's eyes widened in shock, as they processed the big news, and then Ash was promptly congratulated. Oh, baby. I'm so proud of you. Come here. Serena hugged and kissed him. Then the news really sank in and she scoffed. So, let me get this straight. Not only am I married to the hottest man in the world, but I'm also married to a gym leader too now. Wow. Just wow. Haha. Well, It's still subject to approval from the Indigo League. Like your PGCE, babe. But I'm pretty confident they'll give me the keys to it very soon. Well, I should think so, said Brock. You're a really, really strong trainer. And winning the league almost guarantees you the right to be a gym leader. Heck, you could have even been a frontier brain, way before you even won the league. So that job's got your name on it, mate. Yeah, that's true. Thanks, Brocco. No problem. I'm sure you'll be battling challengers in no time at all. And if you want any tips, you know I have plenty of experience myself. Ash accepted the offer and fist bumped Brock, and then everyone continued eating. When they were done, they washed up the dishes and were very well fed. But the night wasn't over yet. They had also planned a games night, before Brock and Olivia would head back home, and started with a game of Pokemon Trivial Pursuit, which Brock was easily winning. Halfway through it though, Serena was starting to feel a bit off again. But she really didn't want to stop the fun, so she just quietly made her way to the bathroom, without a word said. Nobody took too much notice, until she was gone for well over 5 minutes. Olivia got up. I'm just gonna go check on Serena, boys. I'll be back in a minute. Ash and Brock nodded and continued the game, while Olivia made her way to the bathroom. Once she was at the door, she knocked quietly. Hey, everything okay, Serena? She shouted through. Oh, yes, I'm fine. I just had a bit of an upset stomach, but I'm good now. She sounded startled as she answered. Oh, okay, as long as you're all right, honey. Olivia heard a flush and then hurried crashing and banging noises. Then Serena opened the door. She smiled at Olivia and asked her to come back downstairs with her, to continue the game. But Olivia felt something was wrong. There was just a strange look about Serena all of a sudden. She was trying to hide it, but Olivia could see whatever had just happened in the bathroom had made her go white as a sheet. Oh, I just need to use the toilet too first, if that's all right. Oh, okay. Sure. Serena went back downstairs reluctantly, and Olivia locked the bathroom door behind her. She looked around for any kind of sign of what had made Serena act the way she did just now. There wasn't anything too out of the ordinary at first glance, but then she put her foot on the bathroom bin pedal and tilted her head curiously at what was inside. She saw a used tampon and assumed maybe she had just had her period, but as she picked it up, she noticed it didn't have a single mark on it. Now why would Serena chuck away a clean tampon, she wondered. Olivia stroked her chin. She didn't want to pry too much, but she was worried about her friend. So Olivia washed her hands and decided to dig deeper. She looked all around the toilet, bathtub and windowsill. But there was nothing. She sat on the toilet and sighed. Then she noticed a small cabinet drawer by the sink. She rifled through it, all the way to the bottom, and then there it was. Something that probably shouldn't be there. Olivia figured Serena must have panicked and didn't want Ash, or anyone to see it, and those loud noises before she came out must have been her hiding it away quickly. She gasped and immediately returned it back to its original place. Olivia wasn't worried now, though. She smiled to herself and went back downstairs. Olivia rejoined the game, all while keeping tight-lipped about her discovery. It wasn't her place to say anything in front of the boys, but she still wanted to talk to Serena about it. When the game was finished, Brock stretched his arms and yawned. Well, this has been a lovely night, guys, but I think it's time to pick Leo up and get back home. Ah, okay. Well, it's been a pleasure, as always. You know you're welcome back anytime, said Serena. Brock and Olivia thanked her, and then Ash got up to get their coats. Yeah, but maybe next time, we'll come over to yours? Suggested Ash. Yeah, sure. We'd like that, said Olivia. Well, okay. Thank you for a great night. See you later. Take care, you too, said Brock. Ash and Serena said goodbye, but then Olivia asked to talk privately with Serena outside. Oh, okay. Of course, replied Serena, looking confused. They walked out of the house, while Ash stayed and waited inside. Brock went straight over to the car to get it started up, while Serena was keen to know why Olivia wanted a private chat and asked her what was up, as soon as Brock got in the car. So, what did you want to talk about? Well, I was just worried about you earlier, when you said you had an upset stomach and… Oh, don't worry, interrupted Serena. I'm fine now. Yeah, I know. That's great, but still, you didn't look too good when you came out of the bathroom earlier. Well, yes. That was because of my upset stomach, remember? Said Serena, nervously. Yeah, but it looked like more than that to me. It's nothing, dismissed Serena. No, it's not. Now, please don't be mad at me, but I looked around the bathroom when I went in earlier. Serena looked flummoxed. Why? Because I thought something was really wrong with you and I care about you too much to just let it slide. Well, nothing is wrong with me at all. No, there isn't. But, I know. Why you know? Olivia nodded. Yes. I looked in the cabinet, babe. Serena looked stunned and then suddenly started crying out of nowhere. Olivia immediately comforted her. Hey, it's okay. I know it's a scary thing, but it's also a wonderfully amazing thing as well. Believe me. I've been through it all. But it becomes a lot easier to deal with when you have someone by your side through it. And as far as husbands go, Ash is a pretty good one. Oh, I know, I'm just scared of what his reaction will be. Yeah, I get that. I was too, with Brock. But the sooner you tell him, the better, yeah? Serena sniffled and Olivia handed her a tissue from her pocket. Oh okay. Thank you. No worries, don't mention it. After a long hug, Olivia let go of Serena. I should be going now, but will you be okay? I don't want to leave you, if you're not. Yeah, I'm fine now. I just need to get the courage to say it. Well, I'm always here if you need me. Just call me, yeah? Serena nodded. Okay, good luck. Thanks, Olivia, good night. Olivia gave her one last hug and got into the car. Serena waved as Brock drove off. Then she turned around, took a massive deep breath and wiped her tears away. She didn't want Ash to see her like that, especially as she really needed to talk to him now. And she really couldn't put it off until tomorrow, or any later. Olivia was right. Serena walked back into the house and saw Ash chilling on the sofa, laughing at something funny on the TV. She stood in the doorway, frozen and shivering. Ash turned around and pointed at the funny moment in the show, but his smile soon faded when he saw the look on Serena's face. He leapt up and closed the door. Hey, what are you doing, Rena? You'll catch cold, come here. Ash rushed over to the sofa to get a blanket and wrapped it around her. Serena was still not saying a word though, so Ash was getting really concerned now. Are you all right? Serena mumbled something and Ash raised an eyebrow. Okay. Come on, sit down. They sat down together on the sofa and Ash turned off the TV. So, what's wrong? Talk to me, Serena. Serena turned to Ash and half smiled at him. Something has happened. Something wonderful, but I'm scared. I'm so scared. I see. Well, you can tell me and I'll try my best to support you, whatever it is. Okay. Just promise me you won't overreact or freak out, yeah? I need you now, more than ever, Ash. Serena held her hand out in desperation. Sure, I promise. And I'm right here. I'm always here. You know that, Rena. Ash didn't hesitate to grab her hand, which allowed Serena to loosen up a little. She smiled properly now, but she was still feeling queasy. It was like the day she confessed to Ash in the broom cupboard, but this was far more nerve-wracking. This would dictate everything for Serena. For both of them even. Back then, it was just the fear of rejection. Now, this was so much bigger and so much more. She just wanted Ash to want it as much as she did and for it to not change a thing between them. Serena twiddled her thumbs nervously and barely looked at Ash. She opened her mouth to speak, but she couldn't force the words out and kept starting and stopping instead. Ash rubbed her back. It's okay. Take your time. Remember, I will still love you, no matter what it is. And those were the words Serena needed to hear, right there. She stared up at him and decided she was ready, whatever the outcome may be. Okay. I'm just gonna say it now. Serena exhaled and readied herself, and then it all came out. You know how I've been feeling sick the last 2 days? Ash nodded. Well, I thought it could just be because it's my time of the month. I even put a tampon on and prepared for it, thinking it was coming. But I'm late. Ash shifted his eyes from side to side in confusion, trying to understand just what Serena was trying to say to him. Okay. And what does that mean exactly? Serena sighed and laughed a little at his denseness. Somehow, he still didn't fully get girls and everything. Even now. Which made this even more difficult. This was the toughest part for Serena now, but she had to do it anyway. The next words she told him would impact their relationship forever. It means, Serena paused and closed her eyes. And then as she slowly opened them again, she found the courage to finally just say it. I'm with child. Those words cut through Ash like a bombshell. He gasped, now knowing exactly what Serena was saying. There was no need to ask for any further clarification, as he looked down and saw Serena rub her belly. Ash remained silent for a while, trying to calculate every possible reason for it happening, in his head. Serena looked at him with vulnerable eyes and feared the worst. Ash wasn't happy or angry or sad. He was just completely perplexed. Are you sure, Rena? Yes, of course I am. I took the test earlier and it was positive. I can show you it if you want. No, I believe you. I don't. Ash couldn't find the right words and apologized. It's okay. I didn't know how to take it all in either, but I understand if you need some time to process it all. Ash turned his head and tried to think, then he faced Serena again. Okay. I get that you did the test and everything, but, how? I thought we've always been really careful. Yeah, I thought the same thing too. And it's not exactly what I expected either, coming into the new year. But I've had some time to think about it and I think I can explain it. Okay. But before you do, I just want to say that I don't want you to think this changes anything between us, or I'm not happy about it. I just need to get my head around it first. That's all. Serena nodded. I understand. Just let me explain and then hopefully it will all make sense. Ash was ready to listen. So, remember that night a couple weeks before Christmas, when I teased you in that festive outfit you really liked? Why yeah? Said Ash, smiling a little at the memory of it. Well, I think it happened that night. Oh. Ash's mind casted back to a cozy, merry Saturday night in December. Asterisk 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 flashback asterisk 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 asterisk. Ash was playing a video game and was about to take on the final boss, when Serena suddenly walked in wearing a racy red number. She was hornier than usual today and wanted to tease Ash enough that he would stop mashing buttons and smash her instead. Serena figured this could be a fun way of building up sexual tension and spice things up a bit. Ash didn't really notice her walking in at first, but then she bent down right in front of him, showing just enough to get Ash's attention. He saw her ass out of the corner of his eye and tilted his head sideways to get a cheeky look. Ash liked what he saw, but turned his attention back to the game. But then he just had to look again, as he thought he saw more skin than he was expecting. He looked back and realized her butt cheeks were completely bare and she wasn't wearing any panties at all. Her butt cheeks were jiggling and wobbling too, causing a tight stiffness in Ash's pants. It was hypnotic to look at and absolutely impossible to keep his eyes off it. Damn, said Ash to himself. He tried to concentrate back on the game, but Serena was way too desirable in that position. He got up, but then Serena stood back up too and just wagged her finger at him. Read the note, baby. Huh? What note? This one. Serena turned around and stuck her butt again. On it was a little sticky note. Ash looked down at it and read out, "Don't open until Xmas XXX." Serena wanted the D more than anything right now, but it would turn her on more if she pushed Ash to the edge first. Right to his very limit. The sex would be better and rougher that way. No fair, Rena, hee. You're just gonna have to be patient. She winked and left the room. But the seed had been sown in Ash's mind and Serena was almost 100% sure he wouldn't just give up there. And she made sure of it, as she kept teasing him throughout the day and making him take the bait. Her plan worked perfectly, as Ash became increasingly more frustrated. He had to get that fine piece of ass. Now. The teasing eventually reached a tense conclusion in the evening, when they were slightly tipsy on eggnog. Serena was flashing him again in the kitchen, but this time he couldn't take it anymore and pushed her against a wall. He ripped off the note in defiance and slammed his hands on her butt cheeks. Serena was more than happy now to let him do whatever he wanted to her and just moaned in obedience. He was full of red-hot sexual frustration, and that was exactly the kind of Ash she wanted right now. After a few spankings for being such a big tease, Ash didn't waste any time at all and took her right there and then, against the wall and on the kitchen floor. It was so reckless and intense, to the point that they both lost control of themselves a little too much during it. Any precautions they'd usually have in place were completely forgotten about too. There wasn't a condom in sight, and the usual splattering mess left behind by Ash at the end never came. But they didn't care about any of that at the time. Serena did wonder for a second if Ash had actually got off, but she didn't really think about it much. She was feeling way too good to worry about a thing, as Ash carried her to bed. But little did they know that this was the day of conception. Asterisk 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 end flashback asterisk 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 asterisk. Back in the present day, Serena was finishing her explanation of it to Ash. So, I just think we were just enjoying ourselves too much, that we must not have realized that you know, nutted in me. By accident, of course. But it still happened, and one time can be enough. Ash nodded. I've done the maths as well, and it turns out I was ovulating too. So, that means I was 10 times more likely to get impregnated that day. Which makes even more sense. Oh, said Ash, fully understanding it all now. He nodded and then, rather remarkably, started to laugh. Serena gave Ash a funny look. What? What's so funny? Nothing. I just realized. I'm gonna be a dad. A dad. He laughed again. And that's so awesome. Serena's eyes lit up and she looked relieved. So are you happy about it then? Oh, of course I am. Rena. I'm more than happy about it. I'm over the moon. I mean, it's a big surprise, yeah. But, are you really telling me there's a little baby growing inside you right now? And it's ours? Exclaimed Ash, happily. Serena laughed at his ecstatic burst of happiness. Yes. It's our baby, Ash. We're having a baby. Ash got a little emotional and grabbed Serena's waist suddenly. He lowered his head and pressed it against her stomach. Then he kissed it and shook Serena in excitement, but he soon stopped when he remembered the condition she was in now. Oh, sorry. I probably shouldn't do that, should I? Haha, it's okay. Baby is probably only the size of a pea right now, but yeah, you will definitely have to be more careful when I get bigger. Serena giggled and then paused as she went into deep thought. Hey, you okay, Rena? Yeah, I just realized. I'm gonna be a mum. Like an actual mum. And I haven't got the first idea how I'm going to do it. Even though Serena had known for a little while longer than Ash, it was only now just sinking in for her too. Ah, baby girl. Ash grabbed her hand. It is a lot to take in, isn't it? But you're going to be an amazing mom, I promise. And I mean, I have no idea how to be a dad either. So, yes. We're maybe gonna make a few mistakes along the way, but we'll be doing it together. Ash paused and then frowned a little. The only thing is, I just don't want to get it really wrong, like our dads, you know? Ash and Serena were definitely fairly insecure about becoming parents, but what they were feeling was all perfectly natural. What was more important, however, was that they both wanted this just as much as each other and would do everything they could to get it right, which meant they were having the baby for the right reasons. Ah, no, baby, you won't get it wrong at all. It will be hard, but it's not like we don't have any kind of experience, is it? I mean, look at the way we've both brought Growly up together. You're so good with him, Ash. So, I'm positively certain you'll make a really great dad. You have all the qualities ready inside you. Ash looked like he was about to cry and continued to struggle to contain himself. Oh, you really think so? Serena nodded and held his hand. Ash smiled, feeling like he could really do this with Serena. He looked much more confident now and remembered how far they had come in their relationship. They'd come through everything else together, so this should be no different. I mean, yeah. I had no idea how to be a good boyfriend or husband, but here I am now with you. And I don't think I've done a bad job at it. So, I'll do everything I can to be the best dad I can be. You're all that and more, Ash, and we're going to give this baby all the love we possibly can. Ash grabbed Serena's face. Yeah. Whether it's a boy or girl, I'll love them just as much as I love you. Ditto. I love you too, you beautiful man. Ash kissed her and Serena kissed him back. It was the most heartfelt moment, as Serena rubbed her belly again. But with fondness this time, without fear or insecurity or uncertainty. Only positive vibes remained. Just the mere thought of their baby growing and slowly coming into existence was enough to make them both breathless. It was simply extraordinary, and having a baby together was just the epitome of their love, at its very finest. It was clear that neither of them expected it so suddenly, but they still had so much love and care to give. In just 9 or so months' time, they would be welcoming the little one into their world and expanding the family. Totally unplanned, but not unwelcome. Just a baby conceived by pure fate, in the most loving way. And they couldn't wait to meet them. Some 10 years later, Ash and Serena were now nearing their mid-30s. Age had definitely caught up with them, but they were still young at heart and very youthful. And that was perhaps because of the many years of happiness they had spent together so far. But life didn't end there at all for them. They just had to adapt and take on extra challenges in life. Challenges that started off with raising their first child together. Rewinding back 10 years ago, to a restless night in September, a little baby boy was born on the 15th, on a Wednesday, at 1:10 a.m. Serena's waters had broken earlier that day, while she was at work and had been rushed to hospital immediately. Ash came shortly after, calling off a gym battle halfway through. For good reason too, as this was the day he would finally meet his son and become a father for the very first time. Giving birth was of course exhausting for Serena, but everything had gone smoothly and baby was as healthy as could be. Fast forward back to the present day, and the baby was now a fine young boy, in the spitting image of his father, with a strong ache for adventure. He was currently out in the back garden, looking over the buildings and hills of Celadon City and wondering what was out there for him. The sun was setting on a beautiful day, which only made him want to grab adventure even more, with both hands. Hugo. Time for dinner, called his mother. Hugo ran inside, where he was met by Growly, who tackled him gently to the ground. He licked him and then rolled over. Hugo knew exactly what he wanted and stroked his underbelly. Except now, Growly was no longer a baby, or even a Growlithe. He had grown into an adult Arcanine and was no longer quite as adorable as he was, but still a very lovable Pokémon and a very loyal one too at that. Especially to Hugo. He was basically his Pokémon now, but he of course would still have to get his own starter Pokémon first, before he could officially become Growly's trainer. Growly also doubled as a protector for Hugo, making sure he was always safe, especially when Ash and Serena weren't around. From the day Hugo was born, Ash and Serena made sure Growly and Hugo formed a close special bond together. And it couldn't be any stronger, after 10 years of growing up with each other. However, Hugo wasn't the only one Growly looked after. 3 years after Hugo was born, Serena fell pregnant again, this time very much planned, with his baby sister, Lila. 7-year-old Lila skipped to the dinner table and took her seat. She looked more like her dad too. Ash's genes were quite dominant in both children, but Lila definitely had Serena's eyes. Ash was already at the table, eagerly awaiting Serena to dish up the food. He had matured a lot over the years, but that ever-hungry 10-year-old kid that set off on a journey all those years ago never really changed much. Serena came over with the food, just as Hugo joined them. She hadn't changed too much either, except she had grown her hair back out, while she was pregnant with Hugo and tied that famous blue ribbon at the back. Having shorter hair wasn't really necessary now she wasn't performing professionally anymore. But the one big noticeable difference about her now was that she currently had a fringe. In short, she had the sweet, kind, yummy mummy look. Serena laid the plates out and then gave Arcanine his special Pokémon food. Everyone tucked in straight away, but Hugo's mind was a little distant as he ate. "Penny for your thoughts, sweetie?" asked his mother. He quickly snapped out of his daydreams and smiled. "Oh, you know. I'm just still thinking about my birthday coming up and what Pokémon I'm going to pick." Ash chuckled. He was humored by it and quickly swallowed a mouthful of food to respond to him. Well, son. The best advice I could give you is to not be late for it. Serena laughed. Yeah. Your dad's right. Just get there on time and you'll be fine. Yeah, I guess so. Thanks, Mum. Ash looked over at him and saw that he looked a bit lost still. I understand how you're feeling though, Hugo. Your mom and I have both been there before, but you will find your own way through it if you're determined enough. Hugo smiled. Yeah, I will. Thanks, Dad. Maybe you could tell me some more stories about your first journey later? Yeah, of course, and better yet, you can tag along with me to the gym tomorrow, if you want. Hugo's face lit up with excitement. Oh, really? I finally get to do some battling? Well, you're old enough now to at least practice with Jerry, so, yeah, why not? Jerry was Ash's right-hand man at the gym and the official referee, who was also a fairly good battler too. Ah, okay. Can't I battle a challenger too, though? Haha, sorry, no, you're not ready for that yet. Besides, only I'm allowed to battle challengers. Otherwise I'd get in a lot of trouble with the Indigo League. But I admire your hunger for it. You'll be earning badges soon. Just be patient. Ash winked at Hugo and he winked back. Everyone continued to eat and talked about their days, and then it was time for some dessert. Serena still continued to make her specialty to this day, as her macaroons had become family favorites with Hugo and Lila. She placed a basket of them down in the middle of the table. Lila was eager to get first dibs, but was a little too far away to reach the basket, so she tapped her brother's shoulder. Pass me a chocolate one, will you? Hugo nodded and reached his hand out, but Serena pushed the basket away and tutted. What's the magic word, Lila? Lila was at that age where she needed to learn her manners, and Serena was very keen to instill them into her, as soon as possible. Can I have a chocolate one, please? Serena shook her head. She was happy she remembered to say please, but now she wanted to see what else she had learnt. En français? Lila looked a little befuddled and tried to think. Serena had also been teaching her French lately. Hugo was already quite fluent, but mostly spoke English. Their Colossian grandmother would never have allowed her grandkids to not know about their heritage on her side, so Serena made sure they were taught early on. Lila thought hard and desperately attempted to remember the lessons she had been having. She really wanted that macaroon. Ash peered over towards her and clapped his hands, giving Lila some encouragement. He was still terrible at the language himself and had never really fully grasped it, but Serena had taught him some basics, for him to have at least learned some of it by now. Plus, there had been several extra oral lessons thrown in during sex, as Serena had talked dirty to him in French enough times, for him to pick some more up along the way. So he wasn't completely hopeless at it nowadays. Come on. You can do it, Lila, encouraged Ash. Lila opened her mouth and began to enunciate it out. Puis-je avoir du chocolat, s'il vous plaît? Serena giggled at how cute her attempt was. Okay. Close enough. You still have a lot to learn, but here you go, Bubba. Serena handed a chocolate macaroon to her. Okay, I'm going to keep practicing, thank you, Mama. Her parents smiled at her as she took a bite. Ash in particular was very proud that his children had inherited his determination to never give up. They were also both incredibly stubborn like Ash. Whenever they set their sights on something they were convinced they were right about. But this was rather admirably balanced out with Serena's kindness and endurance, so there were many positive traits about them. The next day, Ash brought Hugo along with him to the gym, as promised. Serena also had to go into work too and took Lila along to her showcase school, so she didn't feel left out. Lila was of course too young to even be thinking of going on a journey, but there was definitely a great passion for adventure about her, as well as her brother. And quite a lot of ambition too, for someone of her age. She had already made up her mind that she wanted to compete in contests, having watched loads of old contest videos of her dad's good friends, May and Dawn. Serena was a little disappointed she didn't want to follow in her footsteps and be a performer like her, but contests weren't much different, so she was still happy and supported her dream. Of course 7-year-olds could be very impressionable though and could still change their minds, so Serena was hoping to sway her judgment today. The whole family walked out together and then parted ways in different directions. As Serena and Lila approached the school, Serena looked up and beamed with pride at what she had achieved. It had taken all of the 10 years it was established for, to get it as popular as it was today. Serena, of course, got her PGCE and opened the school a month after she found out she was pregnant with Hugo. But typically, just as it was starting to take off, she had to go on maternity leave. Like any new thing, it took a while to ignite, but now it was seen as the best place to go if you were a young, budding showcase performer in the making. The school name and motto was written on a plaque at the entrance of the school. The Serena Durand Showcase School of Excellence and Endurance was the name, and the motto underneath read, Tout à partir de rien. French, for everything from nothing, which was exactly the kind of journey Serena had experienced. She literally had no showcase experience at the start and only knew how to ride Rhyhorn when she began. But with the strong support of Ash and all of his inspiring positivity, she had gone from a stay-at-home, average girl, to one of the most influential women in the showcase business this century. Actually being showcase royalty too, was just the cherry on top. Yet, she still was your average, humble girl. Just that and more. Serena found herself reminiscing of the past, as she was suddenly snapped out of it, by a very close colleague and her oldest friend. Hey, Serena, hi, Lila, Auntie Shauna. Lila ran over to hug her. Oh, come here, my lovely. Shauna bent down to embrace her, hug, and kissed Lila on her head. When Hugo and Lila were born, it was decided without hesitation that Shauna would be their aunt, even though they weren't related by blood. Serena was an only child, but she always had two people that were like sisters to her. Shauna and Bonnie. Bonnie was also their aunt too, but Shauna doubled as their godmother too. Oh, hi, Shauna. How was your weekend? Good, thanks, it was really relaxing. But what was even better, was that a parent called me yesterday to enroll their daughter, and they're waiting for us in your office, right now. Oh, that's brilliant, thanks for giving me the heads up. Serena grabbed Lila's hand. Come on, Lila. You can wait in the playroom, while Mummy has her meeting. They made their way inside, and then another day of work commenced. Not many people got to work with their true friends, but Serena was lucky enough to work with her best and closest one. Despite coming second in the Kanto showcase, Shauna never achieved her dream and her career didn't really take off. So, she was very thankful when Serena suddenly rang her up one day and offered her a teaching post at the school. She was the best candidate for it, having done it all with Serena over the years and being a whisker away from being a queen herself. Plus, Serena had always felt bad about that, despite earning the title, so she felt it was a good way of paying her friend back. Serena didn't need to feel any guilt at all, but offering the job to Shauna really changed her life forever. She accepted it in a heartbeat and moved over to Kanto immediately, with her boyfriend, now husband. And she had never been happier. It was a win-win situation for everyone, as Serena and Shauna were finally able to see each other regularly again. Trevor and Tierno were still over in Kalos and achieving their own dreams, along with Bonnie and Clement. But the two siblings tried to visit whenever they could, on special occasions. Hugo in particular was always impressed by Uncle Clement's fascinating inventions, which had massively improved over the years. He was in fact one of the leading inventors in the world right now and behind some of the best inventions in the last 5 years. Ash and Serena may not have had any immediate family, except their mothers, but they certainly had friends for life to make up for it, who were as good as family. And the kids were loved by all of them, including their godfather, Brock, and other aunt, Olivia. Even little Leo, who was just a year older than Hugo and already off on his adventures, was like a big cousin to them. Add Arcanine, Pikachu and Braixen in and they really were one big, happy family. Not to mention their very loving grandmas as well. Even though Delia definitely looked too young to be a granny, Delia was naturally the more affectionate of the two. So much so, that she always had gifts and sweets ready for them, whenever they came to visit her in Pallet. She was very overprotective of them too, and that was evident to see the day she found out Serena was pregnant and the day they were born. She didn't stop crying and fussing over them for a week. On the other side of town, Ash and Hugo had just entered the gym, after they dodged the paparazzi, who tried to snap photos of them. After 10 years at the helm, Ash was very well known by the whole city and even recognized worldwide now. He was notoriously known as one of the toughest gym leaders to beat in the world. Ash was even asked to be a member of the Elite Four in recent years, but he declined and was happy to continue being a gym leader. He certainly wasn't ruling out the possibility of joining the club later in life, though. But what made his gym so tough to take a badge from was that Ash didn't really have a Pokemon type assigned to it, which always threw trainers off massively. Pikachu was undeniably Ash's strongest Pokemon, but that didn't mean it was an electric-type gym at all. No one ever knew what Pokemon Ash would choose. It could be any type, from any region. His unpredictability was exactly what won him the league, and he was very highly respected for it, to the point where he and his gym was seen as a pillar of the community in Celadon. Inevitably, this came with a lot more admirers for Ash, most of which being overwhelmingly female. Serena was just as famous as Ash though, so everyone knew they were married, which meant all the girls, and some guys, had to begrudgingly accept that Ash was taken for good. The best they could do was flirt subtly with him, but Ash was still very immune to flirting from other girls, especially when it wasn't entirely obvious. So as much as it annoyed Serena at times, she actually found it quite amusing to see the disappointment in their eyes when he friend-zoned every single of them. She truly was the only woman to have ever had a chance of getting through his dense wall, and actually successfully breaking through it was quite an achievement in itself. Serena definitely had her fair share of admirers too, but like Ash's new fangirls, it was nothing more than celebrity crushes. Ash and Serena really were the it couple in recent years. Because of this, even though they didn't like the limelight much, everyone wanted a photo shoot or interview with them, which they rarely agreed to, but also didn't really have much of a choice about, as they became more and more popular. The monthly Pokemon Showbiz magazine was doing the rounds today, as Jerry chucked a copy at Ash when he entered the battle room. Ash caught and examined it. He sighed, but then smiled. On the front cover was himself and Serena, modeling the latest fashion, with Serena wearing her tiara. He only agreed to do it because Serena genuinely, really wanted to do this particular shoot, but he couldn't help but admire how beautiful his wife looked in the photo, so he was happy they did it. Thanks, Jerry. Ash rolled it up and put it in his back pocket to show Serena later. You're welcome, sorry, little man. I didn't notice you there. To what do I owe the pleasure? He bent down to Hugo's height and extended his hand for him to shake. Hugo confidently shook his hand. No worries, Jerry. My dad said I could practice my battling skills with you before I go on my journey. Oh, right. Well, of course. But first, we have a challenger. Ash raised an excited eyebrow. Well, that's perfect. You can see firsthand what a gym battle is truly like. Come on. Take a seat in the stands. Hugo looked absolutely stoked and nodded his head excitedly. This was the first time Ash was letting Hugo watch him in action. He ran over to the stands and sat down, and then took out a notebook to write down any tips he could pick up during the battle. Okay. Who dares challenge the Celadon gym today? Boomed Ash. A small 11-year-old boy walked in, looking fired up. Hugo's eyes widened in shock as he saw who it was. Cousin Leo? Ash guffawed and turned to his son. Yes. Your cousin Leo has challenged me a few times already, Hugo, but he has been unsuccessful up until now. Ash turned to face Leo. So, what makes you think you're going to win this time, Leo? Because I've been training super hard, Uncle Ash, night and day. Non-stop. I'm going to show you just how much better I have become. Ash chuckled gleefully. That was exactly what he wanted to hear. He clapped his hands together. Excellent. That's the spirit I like to see, so let's get this started. You ready, Jerry? Jerry rushed over and got into position and nodded. Well, okay. Before we begin, I'd just like to remind you that I won't be going easy on you, just because you're family. Your dad and I go way back, and he taught me a lot of what I know today. But you've got to earn your own legacy. Ash looked over at Hugo as he said it, and Hugo seemed to understand that his dad was talking to him too, through his eyes alone. Hugo definitely had to take heed of his words here. I know, replied Leo. Well, let us begin then. Jerry, if you please. Jerry nodded and raised his flag. This gym battle between the gym leader, Ash Ketchum, and the challenger, Leo Harrison, will now begin. It was a 3-on-3 battle, as Leo strived to win a gym badge from his dad's best friend on the third attempt. On previous attempts, he couldn't defeat even one of Ash's Pokemon. But this time, he managed to force Ash to rethink his strategy after returning his first Pokemon. It was a rare small setback for Ash, but unfortunately for Leo, the battle didn't last much longer after that, as Ash's second Pokémon, Pikachu, made short work of all three of Leo's remaining Pokémon. Ash was just too strong for him, and it ultimately ended in a third straight defeat for Leo. Except this time, the battle lasted a little longer and he had actually impressed Ash this time. Hugo cheered in the stands for his father, while Ash just smiled humbly. Leo returned his last Pokémon and hung his head in disappointment, but then he raised it again, when Ash began to slowly clap for him. "Well done, Leo. That was our best battle yet. You've really improved since the last time." "Yeah, but I'm still not strong enough," said Leo, as he hung his head back down. "Hey, no sulking in my gym, Sunny Jim. You know the rules, head up, and remember." Ash clicked his fingers towards the door behind him. At the top of it was a plaque, like Serena's at her school. But his one was a much simpler, yet more powerful message. It simply just said, "Never give up," in big block letters. Ash read it out. A phrase Ash had said so often by now, that it seemed he had invented it. It was certainly something everyone heavily associated with him anyway. Leo looked up, looking deflated at first, but then he clenched his fists together and his eyes burnt with fire once again. He looked back down and bowed in respect. "Thank you, Uncle Ash. I vow to come back again even stronger." "Excellent. That's what I wanted to hear. Now, keep training hard and come back when you feel you're ready again." "I will. Bye, Uncle Ash. Bye, Cousin Hugo. Bye, Jerry." He ran off to get his Pokémon to a Pokémon Center quickly and start again. Ash walked over to Hugo and sat down with him. "Well, I hope you learned something from that. Your cousin is a great trainer, but he still has a lot to learn. As do you. You'll be in his position one day. So I just want you to know, it's not easy competing for badges and you'll feel like you're not good enough at times. But the important thing to remember is to never give up," finished Hugo. Ash smiled proudly. "That's my boy." He ruffled his hair and then leapt up from his seat. "Well, you've only got a week now, until you'll be starting your journey, so there's no time to waste. You can start practicing with Jerry now, and then after, you can challenge your old man." Hugo's mouth fell open. What? Seriously? Ash had never let Hugo battle him until now, so it was a very welcome surprise to him. "Yes, seriously. Now, come on. You can use some of my Pokémon. Hurry up." The training got underway swiftly and continued long into the afternoon. Lila was also learning a lot from her mom too, but it didn't change her mind one bit on her aspirations. She found her day at the showcase school enjoyable, but her heart was already firmly set on contests. What was most important, however, was that she had a good day with her mom, as did Hugo with his dad. It was a fun and insightful day for the whole family, to say the least. A week later, after a lot of impatience and boredom, Hugo finally turned 10 and was old enough to officially become a trainer. As he would be leaving home tomorrow, Hugo decided he wanted his birthday party the day before. All of his friends and family who could make it, attended. His Colossian family weren't able to make it, but Auntie Bonnie and Uncle Clement video called him in the morning to wish him happy birthday. Then his grandma phoned not long after. Grace couldn't believe how fast he had grown up and was quite emotional on the call. "Bon anniversaire, mon petit fils. Where's the time gone? It felt like only yesterday I was holding you in my arms as a baby, and now you're going off on a journey already." Hugo laughed nervously. "Merci, grand-mère, and yeah, I head out tomorrow morning." "Well, have you thought about which Pokémon you're going to choose yet?" "Yes, I have. But I haven't made my mind up yet. I think it's between Squirtle and Bulbasaur." Well, you'll have to introduce me to your new partner tomorrow, and I hope you'll call me every now and then while you're traveling." Hugo smiled brightly at her. "Of course, I'll make sure to call you every week." "Oh, you better. I want to hear every detail about your journey and how you're getting on." "Don't worry, I will. I'll make you proud, Grandma." "Ah, I'm already proud, Hugo. But you know, your mother and father really have brought you up so well. You're such a lovely young man and I just know you're going to be absolutely amazing and do great things." Hugo was modest in his response and just looked down with humility. "Thank you. I'll definitely do my best. Well, bon chance, I have to go now, but call me as soon as you can tomorrow. I love you, Hugo, take care. Thank you, Grandma. Love you too. Bye. Grace smiled and was about to hang up, but then stopped herself from pressing the button. Oh, and give your sister, Lila, a big hug and kiss from me. Hugo reassured her that he would, and then the call ended. Now that everyone had wished Hugo a happy birthday, it was time for his party. It was a pretty low-key party, as Hugo didn't want too much. All he wanted was his first Pokemon and the freedom to travel wherever he wanted. His family and friends just being there was enough for him. So some party food and games was all he needed. He hadn't asked for many presents either, but everyone had gifted him with supplies he'd need on his journey, including one rather spectacular-looking Pokeball from his Uncle Brock, which Brock insisted should only be used to catch a very rare Pokemon. The party continued until the early evening, until the guests started to leave one by one. Hugo was getting more and more excited with each passing hour, closer to the big day. He was so excited that he ate his dinner and a slice of birthday cake so fast that Serena had to check his plate twice to make sure she wasn't imagining it. Hugo was just like his father in that regard, but Serena was begging him not to eat so fast again, while Ash was just laughing heartily. Hey, don't encourage him, he's got to stop doing that. Haha. I'm sorry, babe. He just reminds me so much of, well, me. Serena rolled her eyes and sighed. Ash just laughed again and continued to eat his food. Yeah, too much like you sometimes. Serena whacked Ash's arm playfully. He dramatically rubbed his arm and made a meal out of it, while Serena laughed and looked over at the clock. She gasped and then turned to Hugo and Lila, with her hands on her hips. Right. It's bedtime, you two. Come on, chop chop. Serena clapped her hands together to hurry them up. Lila kicked up a bit of a fuss, in typical 7-year-old fashion, but she eventually gave in, after a very stern look from her father. Hugo was oddly much more eager to go, however, and rushed off to his bedroom. He started getting ready for bed, but then found himself getting excited and then jumped up and down on his bed, like he was on a sugar rush. The light was turned off and his TV was switched over to a Pokemon battle channel. It had got him so hyped that he wasn't even feeling tired at all and didn't look like going to sleep anytime soon. Ash and Serena heard his excitement from across the corridor, so Serena nudged Ash to go and tell him to go to sleep. Ash sighed and got out of bed. He was hoping for some much overdue quality time with his wife, but that didn't look like it was happening tonight. It was difficult to have time for any of that when you had kids, but the priority was always them. And right now, Ash needed to make sure his son got enough rest and didn't oversleep, like he did many years ago before. Ash walked over to his room and knocked on his door. Hey, champ? Can I come in? Oh, yeah, sure, Dad. Ash entered and sat down next to him on his bed. His face lit up with nostalgia when he saw what his son was watching. He patted Hugo's leg and smiled. You know, I did exactly the same thing as you're doing now, the night before I started my journey. I couldn't contain my excitement either. Ash paused and remembered what he was supposed to be doing and put his responsible dad hat back on. But you've really got to go to bed now. Yeah, I know, Dad. Sorry. I just can't stop thinking about it. I get that. But you need to make sure you're fully rested, and on time. On time? Ash stifled a laugh. Yeah. Ash got up to flick a lamp on and turned the TV off. Let me give you a bedtime story before you sleep. Oh, no way. I'm way too old for them, Dad. Ash wagged a finger. Ah. But this is one you'll want to hear. It's one of your mother's favorites. Hearing that instantly piqued his interest, as he looked over attentively at his dad. Huh. Okay, I'm listening. Ash smirked and cleared his throat. Once upon a time, about 20-odd years ago, when I was your age, I woke up an hour late and rushed all the way to Professor Oak's lab. When I got there, all the Pokemon were all gone. But thankfully, Professor Oak had one last special Pokemon. I was lucky to even get him. Can you guess who it was? Hugo thought about it for a couple seconds. Pikachu? Exactly. Now, I wouldn't have wanted anyone else for a partner. But you know Pikachu isn't a starter Pokemon, right? Hugo nodded. Good. But like I said, I was incredibly lucky to even meet him. I could have missed out completely and I don't want that happening to you. So it's important that you get enough sleep, so you can pick who you really want. Yeah? Ash looked at him seriously. Yeah, Okay, Dad, I understand. Great. You've got a big day tomorrow. Ash patted his leg again and got up. Then he walked over to the bedroom door and opened it. So, sleep tight. Thanks, Dad. Good night. No problem. Night, night. Ash pointed to the lamp for Hugo to turn off and then the light went out. Then Ash walked out and shut the door behind him quietly. When he got back to the bedroom, he saw Serena was already fast asleep. He sighed again, but more lovingly this time. Better luck next time, he said to himself. He got in bed next to her and played with her hair for a bit. Serena smiled in her sleep and seemed to know Ash was with her now. He wrapped his arm around her waist and fell asleep with her. The next morning, everyone was up bright and early. Hugo took his dad's advice and was up before anyone else, ready and right on schedule. He was to choose his Pokémon at 9 a.m. sharp and it was now 8:30, as he waited to leave with his family. Professor Oak had very kindly given Hugo the option to talk over a video call, rather than come all the way to Pallet. He had also posted a Pokédex over for Nurse Joy to give him. So the Ketchums made their way over to their local Pokémon Center. Hugo went in alone, while his parents and sister waited outside for him. This was something he had to decide for himself. When he emerged, he'd be beginning his quest to be a Pokémon Master, just like his father before him and saying his goodbyes. Serena was already struggling to stop the emotions flooding over and was dabbing her eyes with her old handkerchief. Ash hugged and kissed her and reassured her everything was going to be okay. In the Pokémon Center, Hugo was just about to pick his partner. A partner for life. It was one of the biggest decisions he'll ever make. He pondered on it for a fair while, but the truth was that he had already made his decision. His choice was heavily influenced by a strong admiration of one of his dad's Pokémon. In fact, of course, Ash had all three of the Kanto starters, so it was just a question of which one Hugo adored the most. But he thought about it some more first, before making his mind up. Then he pointed at a Pokeball and then Professor Oak transferred the chosen one over to him. Hugo picked it up after it was transported and stared at it with starry eyes. Thank you, Professor. I'm going to be the best trainer I can be. Professor Oak chuckled. Oh, I don't doubt that at all. You sound just like your father. I shall be watching your career with great interest. Hugo laughed confidently and scratched his nose. Well, I'm gonna make my own legacy. Just you wait and see. Well, today's the day everything begins, young man. So get out there and catch 'em all. Hugo nodded and looked raring to go. He said goodbye and began to run out. Oh, but don't forget your Pokédex. Professor Oak shook his head, seeing much of Ash's impulsiveness in him. Oh, yeah. Thanks, Professor. Nurse Joy walked over to hand it to him. Thanks, Nurse Joy. Bye, Professor. Professor Oak waved him off and then ended the call. Hugo dashed outside and threw his arm back to release his new Pokémon. Hey, guys. Meet my new partner. Hugo threw the Pokeball forwards. Squirtle! Cried the Pokémon. Lila immediately gushed and went over to hug Squirtle. Aw! Squirtle is so cute. I want one. I want one. Squirtle awkwardly patted Lila on the back and then she let go, only after her mum told her to. Well, now that's certainly an interesting choice, said Ash. He bent down to its height. Hello, Squirtle. Squirtle greeted him back. Serena bent down too and smiled at Squirtle. Hello, Squirtle, nice to meet you, said Serena. She extended a hand and Squirtle shook it. It was Hugo's turn to introduce himself now. The most important introduction of all. Hello, buddy. I'm Hugo. I'm your new trainer. Squirtle nodded at him respectfully and listened to him. It was the total opposite of Ash and Pikachu's first meeting. I want to be a Pokémon Master, just like my dad here, he continued, pointing to Ash. Will you help me achieve that please, Squirtle? Squirtle, squirt, answered Squirtle, confidently, with clenched fists. Hugo smiled at it. Fantastic. Thank you so much, and in return, I promise I'll always look after you and be the very best friend I can to you. Ah, that's sweet, said Serena. This could really be the start of a beautiful friendship. Just always make sure you have each other's backs. I remember the first day I set off with Fennekin. Couldn't have made it without her. Hugo nodded at his mother and looked over at Squirtle who nodded back. Well, I guess you're all good to go then, Son, said Ash. But just one question before you go. What made you pick Squirtle? Hugo smirked. Your Squirtle, Dad. He's a hero. Just like you're mine. Bulbasaur and Charizard are cool too, but your Squirtle has helped a lot of people and I want my Pokémon to be just as brave as him. Ash was pleased with the response and smiled. Well, that's a pretty great reason. Whenever I chose a Pokémon, I never really knew why. Only who. But anyway, you've really got to get going. Time's not going to stop for you, you're wasting daylight. Ash tapped his watch. Haha. You're right, Dad. Hugo hugged him. See ya. Ash nodded and then Hugo hugged his mum and sister and said his goodbyes to them too. Come on, Squirtle. Let's get going. Hugo began to walk away, then stopped, took one last look back and then marched onwards, with Squirtle following close behind. He got to the end of the street, almost ready to take flight, but then he turned around again. Hugo had been desperate to leave for weeks, but now it was actually happening. He was hesitating a little. He looked back over at this family and then called out for his dad. He wasn't quite ready to leave just yet. Ash sprinted over to him as quickly as he could. Hey, everything okay, champ? Asked Ash, with concern. Why yeah. I'm just a little nervous about leaving all of a sudden. Do you have any last-minute advice, or another cool story you can tell me? That would really help right now. Ash's worry instantly disappeared, as he started to look amused now instead. He always acted so sure of himself when he first started his journey, but the truth was, he felt exactly the same way as Hugo was feeling right now. He just hid it well. But he was glad Hugo recognized his doubts, sooner rather than later and didn't bury them like he did. Well, I've given you all the advice and stories I can, but there's one thing I didn't say. And it's perhaps the most important thing. Oh. What's that, Dad? Always try to be the best you can be. Never give up. Train, train, train. But please, whatever you do, don't lose sight of what's really important. It's not all about winning badges. Hugo looked confused and asked what his dad meant by that. What could be more important than winning badges? Ash put a hand on his shoulder and looked him straight in the eye. I mean, the most important thing is love and friendship. Yes, I'm a Pokémon master. I won the league. I achieved all my dreams. But my friends have always been the best of me, son. I couldn't have done it without them. Especially your mother. But it took me a while to realize that. I was sometimes too focused on my dreams, you know? It only hit me when I actually finally won the league. It just opened my eyes up to it all. To life, to true happiness. To your mother. And that's how your mother and I fell in love with each other. So my last piece of advice to you? Make as many friends as you can and just enjoy life, okay? Promise? Hugo took a while to process it all, but then understood everything and hugged his dad. Ash hugged him back. Okay. I promise. Thank you, Dad. No problem, son. You know, your mother and I never grew up with a dad. We never knew your granddads. But the day I found out your mother was pregnant with you, I vowed to be the best dad I could be, to not repeat that. And to be honest, your arrival was a big surprise for us. But a very welcome one. Because we had so much love to give you. So much. Ash broke away from the hug, but kept his arms on Hugo. And we'll never stop loving you. Never ever. So we're always going to be here for you, however far you travel. Even if you're on the other side of the world. No matter what, we'll be in here. Ash placed his hand over Hugo's heart. Hugo didn't know what to say and just stared down. His reaction was evident enough though, as a single tear left his eye. Ash wiped it away and then he stood up and took a step back. If he kept him any longer, he would have started to cry too and then he'd never want to let him go. Now go and show the world what a Ketchum can do, Ash patted his shoulder and Hugo grinned confidently. It was quite the picture, as a father looked down at his son, with nothing but love and pride. Then Ash did something that surprised Hugo. He suddenly took his hat off and put it on his son's head, as if passing it down to him. There. Now you're good to go. Can't go on a journey without a hat. Your mother and I always had a hat. But Dad. I can't take your— Yes, you can. I want you to have it. Now go, before I start getting really emotional. Ash backed further away from him. Oh okay. Hugo smiled up at his dad and accepted the hat, tipping it down at him in respect. I'm gonna make you proud, I promise. Bye, Dad. I know you will. Bye, son. Take care. Hugo gave everyone one last wave and then ran ahead, full of energy, with Squirtle trying to keep up. He wasn't even sure where he was going, but hopefully it was in the direction to meet his own Misty and Brock. A journey was better traveled with company, after all. Whatever destiny was waiting for him out there, would surely find him eventually. Ash looked down and started to cry a little, fighting off the tears as best he could. Go smash it, Hugo. I'll be waiting for you when you get back. Serena and Lila walked over to see Hugo off, until he was just a little speck in the distance. Ash quickly removed any evidence of him crying and raised his head. He didn't want to make anyone else cry, but Lila actually looked a little jealous, rather than upset, as she watched her brother go. Mummy, Daddy, can I go with him? Please, 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 she begged, tugging at their clothes. Serena laughed. Nonsense. You're way too young, Bubba. Lila pouted and stomped her foot. No fair. Hugo always gets to do all the cool things. She crossed her arms in protest and started to have a little tantrum. Serena and Ash looked over at each other and nodded. They thought Lila might not be too happy about her brother leaving, so they planned a surprise for her. Auntie Shauna was going to take you to a contest today, with Daddy's friends, May and Dawn, as special guest stars, said Serena. Lila's eyes widened at the very mention of a contest. Boot. If you don't want to go, we can give the ticket to someone else, said Ash. Lila immediately stopped her tantrum and uncrossed her arms. She gasped and stared up at her parents, with bulging eyes. No, I want to go. I want to go. She jumped up and down frantically. Ash and Serena smirked at each other. Success. Parenting done right. Haha. Okay, you win. But you have to promise to behave yourself, young lady, warned her mother. Oh, I'll be on my bestest behavior. Promise. Please let me go, she begged, with puppy dog eyes. Ash and Serena toyed with her a little and stroked their chins, while looking back and forth at each other and at Lila. Well, okay then, of course you can, said Ash. Yay. Thank you, Daddy. Thank you, Mama. She hugged them and then Shauna arrived right on cue. She bent down to talk to Lila. Hey, sweetie, are you ready to go see the contest? We. Lila jumped up and down excitedly. Haha, okay. Well, take my hand and let's go then. Alan's why, exclaimed Lila, happily. Lila took her hand and then she waved goodbye to her parents. Ash half smiled as she left. He knew Lila was coming back at least, but he was missing Hugo already. Serena looked over at him and saw through his broken smile. Hey, you okay, babe? Why yeah, I just didn't realize it would be this hard to let go, you know? Ah. Yeah, I know what you mean. But everyone leaves home eventually, right? This is the way. And he'll be back before we know it. Yeah, you're right, Rena. I just hope he'll be okay. Yeah, me too. I'm going to be worried sick, but our son has everything he needs. He's had the best dad to prepare him, so he'll be just fine. Serena was so sure she'd be the one needing the most reassurance, but Ash was more anxious about it than she thought he would be. Ash was inclined to agree with his wife though, as Serena calmed his qualms in seconds. And the best mum. Don't forget that. They both smiled and leaned towards each other until they were close enough to kiss. All right. Let's go home then, said Ash, feeling a bit better about it all now. Ash grabbed Serena's hand and swung it all the way back home. When they got in, they fed Growly in the back garden, put on some quiet music to relax and then sat down to watch some TV. They had both booked the day off work and planned to spend the day alone together. It was very rare they had a free house or time to themselves in general nowadays. There were of course days they got babysitters to help with that, but that wasn't very often. They loved their kids like nothing else, but they were still very much in love with each other, so they always took the opportunity to have a romantic day, whenever they could. But they were still mulling over their son's departure at the moment and talked about it for some time, until they eventually decided to stop worrying. So they cuddled up close together and began to enjoy what time they had left, before Lila would be back. But they couldn't just sit there all day and waste an opportunity they hardly ever got, as certain desires would inevitably overtake them soon. It had been a while since they had even had a kiss that lasted longer than a few minutes, so it was only a matter of time, until they were all over each other in a starving frenzy. They side-eyed each other a few times, before they giggled and gave in to the hormonal temptations. They reached their arms around each other and kissed, slowly at first, but then they picked up pace and started to get carried away. The sound of their lips smacking together and their breathless moans in between was appropriately accompanied by the faint background noise of "Every Time We Touch" playing in the room. As they got into the kissing more, they began to really take the restraints off and started to feel each other's bodies up, as they finally had the privacy to allow them the pleasure. Then Ash suddenly picked Serena up and carried her over to the stairs. But he paused at the first step, giving them a chance to catch their breath first, before what was certainly going to happen next. They both opened their eyes and just looked into one another's souls for a few seconds. "You know, sometimes I still can't believe you picked me, Ash." "Now what's that supposed to mean?" "I mean, you could have had anyone you wanted. Misty and Sophie weren't the only ones with eyes on you." Ash looked at Serena with a confused expression on his face. "Oh, really? I hadn't noticed. I only ever saw you, Rena. Only you, baby." "I know, baby. I'm so lucky you wanted me," Ash smirked. "Well, let me show just how lucky I am and just how much I want you right now." Serena smirked back at him, with dirty thoughts already creeping into her mind. "Oh, yeah? Well, you better get me up these stairs quick then." Another burst of lust hit them and then Ash rushed her up to the bedroom. They had been waiting for this for quite some time and it was only a testament to how strong their hearts were still beating for each other. Having children was often a big destroyer of a couple's sex life together. But this wasn't that kind of relationship at all. It was the kind that ignited sparks forever, no matter what happened. They had been together for so long for a reason, but that of course came with hurdles. Serena was still right about the competition she faced for him, for example. It was no secret that Ash had his admirers. Even Ash himself had finally realized over the years that he was a bit of a babe magnet. He didn't really understand why, though, and he didn't care much for it anyway. Ash would be lying if he said he hadn't thought a few of the other girls he had met on his travels were pretty. Yet, there was never any kind of connection with them there for Ash. None of the girls stood out as Serena always had to him. He simply just knew there was something about her, ever since the day they parted ways at the airport, on the top of an escalator, with a soft kiss of the lips. Every day without her until they met again just didn't feel right, and it translated into real feelings when Ash was desperate to keep her by his side after he won the league and their journey seemed to end. But the reality was that the journey never really stopped. Not even after Serena became Kanto Queen. The twosome had completely settled down, but they were still on their own, longer journey together, every day, until they were gray and old. It was an eternal adventure that had begun almost 30 years ago now. They were no longer those 5-year-olds lost in the forest, or young teenagers discovering themselves in Kalos. Serena was twice the woman she was and knew exactly where she was going now. Ash was no longer that naive 10-year-old, on an obsessive master quest, and had finally realized just what was most important of all. They had everything now, and that just about wraps up their story together. When you're a kid in the Pokemon world, they tell you that it's all, travel as wide as you can, catch 'em all and achieve all your dreams. Then grow up, get a job, get married, get a house, have 2.4 kids, and that's it. But the truth is, life was so much more than that for Ash and Serena. And there was so much more to come. Nothing else needed to be said now, as they got the green light from one another. They both pulled the boxers down at the same time. Serena licked her lips at what popped out. Now that is a sight to behold." Ash laughed nervously and scratched the back of his head. But it really was everything Serena had dreamt of and more. She looked back up at Ash and got up to kiss him. Serena was proud of him for finding the confidence to get this far. As the kiss ended, her hand brushed along his ever-growing manhood, and then she laid herself out on the bed, spreading her legs apart gradually. Ash groaned. All his nerves had left, and now all he needed was her. Serena rubbed her hands over her body, enticing Ash forwards. "My body is yours to do as you please with tonight, Ash. I'm all yours." Ash climbed on top of her, keeping his eyes on the prize the whole time. "You are so beautiful, Rena," he whispered into her ear. He kissed her and then continued kissing her further down her naked body, just as Serena had done to Ash minutes before. Except his head didn't stop. He got lower and lower and lower until... Bullseye. Contact was made. Serena gasped. Ash was moving much faster than expected, reaching the sweet spot in mere seconds. Serena would never have imagined it to progress like this so rapidly, but she loved not knowing what Ash was going to do to her and when it was coming. And she did basically say, he could do whatever he liked to her. He could do anything. Especially as unpredictability was always Ash's speciality, and it seemed as if he was taking it into the bedroom now. Serena braced herself for Ash's next move, and then she let out a big loud moan. Ash had dived tongue first, deep into Serena's gaping wet pussy, and now he was sticking his fingers in, probing away at Serena's walls. He looked down at it in curiosity, in awe of how it was possible for it to get so wet so quickly. Ash knew that arousal in women caused a vagina to get in that state, but this was still a big learning experience for him. He pulled a finger out, as a string of pussy juice came out with it. Serena was absolutely soaking and enjoying every second of it. She tried to get a look at what her boyfriend was doing to her, and she did get a brief look, until Ash increased the tempo and made her throw her head back down. She moaned louder as he continued to finger her quite hard, until his fingers got tired. In truth though, Ash's technique was very amateurish, but Serena had been waiting for this for years and she had nothing else to compare to, so this was absolute heaven to her. Plus, she was completely in love with him, so any kind of physical touch from him was going to be more than good enough. Ash raised his head away from Serena's pussy and moved up her body to kiss her. Serena kissed him back and slowly reached her hand out forwards. She didn't want to startle Ash, but she was desperate to get a feel of what was poking out in front of her now. Her hand carefully touched the tip of Ash's penis. Ash jerked back a bit, not expecting it. Serena looked up at him apologetically. Sorry, Ash. Can I touch it?" asked Serena. Ash smiled. "Of course you can, baby. I just wasn't expecting you to touch it so suddenly." He laughed a little awkwardly. "Okay, well I'm gonna take it slow then." Ash nodded, and then Serena grabbed the tip again. She would have to take it slow anyway, because she was still astounded at the size of it. It wasn't too lengthy and was probably just about a couple inches longer than the average penis, by Serena's guess, but the girth on it was insane. This was the first penis Serena had seen in the flesh, and she'd always tried to imagine what Ash's would look like, but this was something else. She wondered how it was even going to fit inside her. Serena was too horny to care though, as her hand slipped further down it. She had a tight hold on it now, and then when her grip was firm enough, she gradually began to rub it up and down. Ash groaned at the feeling of her soft hand, as it created a pleasurable friction. This was such a new feeling for both of them. Ash hadn't even masturbated before, so it was making his body tingle with new, intense sensations. He never realized what he was missing out on before, and he was absolutely loving it. Now he finally knew what all the fuss was about. But he didn't want to let it completely consume him, to the point he lost control. He knew he would reach a climax at some point, and he didn't want it coming too early. Thankfully, the pace Serena was rubbing at it was just right. Ash rolled his eyes back and sighed a sigh of relief. This was long overdue. Every young male needed some kind of special sexual treatment, after all, and Serena was the perfect nurse to treat Ash. Then Serena suddenly stopped and looked up at Ash. "Are you enjoying it? Am I doing it right?" she asked, a little insecurely. "Oh, yes, baby. It feels amazing. Keep going, please." Serena giggled and fed off his encouragement. Okay. Well, if you like that, just wait until I go down on you." Serena smirked, full of excitement. "Oh? Go down on me?" I'm gonna put it in my mouth now. Are you ready?" Ash's eyes widened a little, in pure anticipation, and then he nodded excitedly. Ash swapped places with Serena and laid down on the bed. He took a deep breath and let Serena put her mouth to work. She still had some lipstick on, so it printed itself onto the tip, as she stretched her lips over the head. Even the head was girthy, like a big fat mushroom, and it was a particularly tasty one for Serena, as she tasted Ash for the first time. Her lips curled a little, as she fit more and more into her seemingly shrinking mouth. Ash's dick was making it look tiny, as she attempted to get it as far down her throat as it would go. Ash groaned again and threw his head on the pillow behind him. Serena went as slowly as she could, not wanting to go too fast on Ash just yet. She had to get used to Ash's dick anyway and the motion of sucking a dick in general. There was a first time for everything, but her lack of experience showed when she started to gag on it a little. She came up for air and took a little break. Serena wasn't going to give up on it at all, though. Not for 1 second. She worshipped that dick already. Serena smiled at her lover and Ash smiled back. "You're doing so good, Rena. Keep going," encouraged Ash. "Well, I'm glad you like it. I just need to get used to it. You're so big, Ash," she exasperated, trying to catch her breath quickly. "Oh, am I?" Serena nodded and giggled, looking back at it in all its size. "Well, just do what you can, baby. Oh, don't worry. I'm gonna blow you so good now." Ash smirked and prepared himself. Then Serena licked her lips and tried again. Ash's approval gave her even more confidence this time, as she got some momentum going and sucked it up and down, with technique this time. Her head ever so slightly bobbed a little faster, with each passing second, as she was starting to get the hang of it now. Serena even looked up into Ash's eyes after a while, which sent him batshit crazy. The eye contact was making it so much hotter, but Ash couldn't stare for long, as he felt a rush in his balls again. He squinted his eyes shut and bared his teeth, but Serena wasn't stopping though and had lost all sensibility. She was just running on adrenaline now, not quite believing she was actually giving Ash Ketchum a blowjob. She never thought it would happen at one point, but now it was actually happening. She was as determined to do it as becoming Kanto Queen. Serena was gagging for it more and more, the longer it went on. She really couldn't get enough of it and even started to get her tongue involved, licking the shaft hungrily, as she sucked. It went down well with Ash too, as his pleasure levels reached its very limit, so much so that he had to call a timeout and catch his breath. They giggled at how crazy things were getting. Both were amateurs experiencing it all for the first time, so it wasn't going to be straightforward. And it certainly wasn't going to be perfect, but what mattered is that they had fun together. Ash and Serena both felt comfortable too, which was the most important thing of all. After a little break, Serena continued to keep Ash hard by stroking his cock gently. She looked at him with love in her eyes. This wasn't just a meaningless shag to her. She wouldn't even let any other man anywhere near her. Ash was the love of her life and she wanted to feel the kind of connection with him that could only be experienced through intercourse. She was a desirable young woman, so she could have easily found someone willing before now, but she was always saving herself for Ash. Only Ash. So this wasn't just about having sex for the sake of it, just because she was horny. She needed him as close to her as humanly possible. Ash looked at her exactly the same way and then they both knew it was time. "Are you ready, baby?" asked Serena. "Yeah, I want you so bad." "Me too." "Okay. Lie down for me," asked Ash. Serena happily did as she was told and spread her legs open for him. It was finally going to happen, after a lot of frustration and patience. Ash lowered himself down onto Serena and held his manhood. He'd never really had the urge to stick it in anybody or anything before, but there was nothing he wanted more right now than to put it in Serena. Even if he tried to stop thinking about it, his body would just not physically allow it. Serena had woken up his dick and it was pulsating and screaming at Ash right now to bury it inside her. All the blood was rushing down to his raging boner and goading him to succumb to his primal urges. He just had to feel Serena in a way he never had before. Ash lowered and positioned his penis down, against her pussy. He rubbed it across it, sending sharp shivers coursing through Serena. She watched with her mouth open and almost stopped breathing. Then Ash tried to put it in, but missed the hole. Serena chuckled a little at Ash's inexperience. He tried again, but this time with Serena's help, as she guided it lower down. "Just a little lower, baby." Ash let Serena help him, as he felt his bulbous head enter her walls. Now it was wrapped up tight by her pussy lips. Ash gently moved Serena's hand away and took over from there. He pushed it further in, until he hit a barrier. Serena told him to break through it and then she yelped in pain. Ash looked up at her with sad eyes. He knew this was a necessary part of the process, but it still didn't make Serena's pain any easier to see. Ash quickly decided the best thing to do would be to kiss her, to take the pain away. So he did just that and stroked her hair too, in tender comfort. "It's okay, baby. I'm here, he whispered, in her ear. Thank you, baby. It'll pass soon. Ash cleaned the blood up and gave Serena a little time, until she gave him the go-ahead to continue. Then he re-entered her and eased himself in her properly, wriggling his hips against her. Serena's pussy seemed to be adjusting already and accepted Ash's penis, as it began to grip tightly onto it. Oh, Ash. You feel so good inside me. Oh, you feel so good too, Rena. You're so wet down there, though. How? Why? Serena giggled. That's because of you, silly. It means I really need you, Ash. Oh. Well, I need you too, Rena. Ah. Well, I think I'm ready for you now. Okay. So, can I start moving? Serena nodded and bit her lip to brace herself. Ash started to thrust as gently as he could at first. Serena winced a little. It was still a little painful, especially as Ash's girth meant it was a very tight squeeze. Ash continued to kiss Serena though, which eventually soothed her as she got used to having her pussy penetrated. They both didn't really know what they were doing at all, but that was the beauty of it, as they both took each other's virginity, in the most romantic way possible. Missionary was all they could do for now, but it was more than enough. Serena was even starting to enjoy it now. The winces eventually turned into moans and even a little French dirty talk at one point. Serena was an absolute sweetheart, but Ash was unleashing a hidden strong sexual appetite within her that she didn't even know she had. But she quickly discovered that she was a dirty talker in bed. The sweet ones were sometimes secretly the filthiest kind of people, after all. Ash had no idea what she was saying though, but found it kinda hot, as he kept plowing through her insides and responded to the dirty talk, with harder thrusts. Then Ash noticed Serena's small, but perky bosoms, bouncing in time to Ash's thrusts. His eyes became entranced, just watching her hard pink nipples jiggle up and down rhythmically. He lunged forwards and put a hand on Serena's left boob and started suckling on the nipple, then moved over to the right. Serena latched onto a clump of Ash's hair and whined in ecstasy. Oh, fuck. Yes, baby. Use your tongue too. Ash muffled something in response and prodded his tongue out. Serena clutched onto Ash's hair harder, until they were both satisfied with the nipple play. Then Ash moved his head over to Serena's neck and kissed it a little to make her purr some more. Serena closed her eyes and allowed Ash to lead everything. The neck kissing was sending shivers up her spine and subduing her anyway. She trusted Ash enough by now to know he would always treat her with care. Ash's kisses trailed down to her shoulder, until his head eventually sunk into the pillow and he was muffling groans into it. He stayed like that for a bit and took a little break from the action, while still inside Serena. They both needed more though, so Ash didn't rest for long. He lifted his head back up and returned to work immediately on Serena's tight little pussy. They were both happy to stick with this position for a while, until Ash gasped and felt his balls tightening up a little. He wanted to keep going though and grunted and gritted his teeth together in determination, to try to control his building orgasm. But it was useless, as he felt like he could blow any second. So he pulled out quickly and took another break. He figured he would learn in time how to last longer, but for now, he needed to take his time. Ash and Serena were having the time of their lives, so it was a little frustrating to stop for the both of them. But it was necessary. Ash rolled over next to Serena, who probably needed the break too, as they breathed heavily. God. That feels so damn good, said Serena. I know, I want more, and more. Well, when you're ready, maybe we could try a different position? Serena smirked at him, with playful eyes. Ash looked back at her and felt a feeling he had never felt before, but he didn't know what it was just yet. Oh, okay. I like that, but what are you thinking? Oh, you'll see. Serena winked. When Ash felt he could go again, Serena sucked and hardened Ash's slightly floppy metapod and made it stand to attention again. Then she crawled on the bed and bent herself over. She looked back at Ash and grinned sexily. Come fuck me from behind, baby. I think you'll like this position a lot. Ash didn't hesitate and got behind Serena fast, but just stared at her ass for a minute. It wasn't as big as Dawn's, when he unintentionally got an eyeful of it, but it was still more than a handful and plump enough to have a lot of fun with. He rubbed his hand on a butt cheek, before grabbing both her cheeks with both hands. That's right, Ash. Grab onto me and let me have it. Ash smirked and gave her what she wanted. That was something he simply couldn't refuse. He took his dick in his hand and jammed it into Serena again. They both moaned instantaneously, as that wondrous feeling returned and Ash filled Serena up once again. But as Ash rested his hands on her ass and started to go again on her, the pleasure increased so much more this time. He felt like there was a lot more room in Serena's pussy all of a sudden, as he found himself getting deeper and deeper inside her. Serena felt it too, as Ash began to hit spots that she really needed hitting and had never been reached before. Oh, right there. Ash, that's it. Keep fucking me, baise-moi. As deep as you can go, moaned Serena, struggling to speak. Ash didn't need telling twice and kept the drilling up. It was a good thing his travels had made him so fit, as he had the stamina to give it to Serena long enough to make her climax. She was getting quite close now. The only thing that would stop Ash now was his own climax, which was building up once again too. Serena had never felt so good in her life, but she'd reached a point where she needed Ash to take it up a level. Faster. Faster. Plus repeat, begged Serena. The harder Ash fucked her, the more Serena slipped into her native tongue, in sudden uncontrollable outbursts. It was really turning Ash on, and it was very convenient too, as Serena seemed to read Ash's mind. He felt the urge to go harder and faster too, and then they were in total unison with each other. He readjusted himself and moved onto the bed with Serena, knees down and placing his hands over her hips now. Then they were off again, much quicker and more electric this time. Ash treated it like a workout routine and pushed himself to his body's ultimate limit, to give his girl his very best. It was working a treat too, as Serena squealed and let out the loudest moan of the night. Oh, just a little bit more, baby. I'm close, see prosh. Ash was always so full of energy, but seemed to have found another hidden bout of it from somewhere, as he railed Serena as good as an amateur having sex for the first time could. His hair became wet with sweat, as it dripped down onto Serena's equally sweaty back. All kinds of bodily juices were starting to flow out now, as Serena's pussy dripped out some thick discharge onto Ash's cock. Then Ash gave it one last push and lowered himself down onto her and tried to fit as much of his length in her as possible. He used everything he had left to make his girl cream, and it didn't take much more, as Serena's legs started to shake suddenly. I'm gonna come, shrieked Serena. Serena let out an exasperated moan, and then Ash stopped. He pulled out, letting Serena slump down onto the bed, to enjoy her moment of gratification. She moved her hand underneath her and rubbed her pussy to savor it. Ash joined her on the bed and kissed her cheek. Serena panted into the pillow and tried to regain some energy. Okay. Your turn, baby. She turned around onto her side, with her back to Ash, and opened her legs up, like they were scissors. Slide it back in and fuck me, till you come. Ash didn't need to say a word and just climbed over to the other side of the bed, eager to try this new position too and fuck Serena sideways. He went quite fast again, but tried to take it at a steady pace. He'd never had an orgasm before, so he didn't know what to expect. He was a little worried about it, but he needed to know what it felt like. His sex studies had always made it seem like such an amazing thing. And now he'd built it all up. He needed to release the bubbling bomb inside him, ready to explode. He felt it deep in his balls and knew it was coming any second. Ash just needed to make sure it didn't spill out into Serena. He knew full well by now what could happen if he came inside her accidentally. So he had to get this right. He kept going, until he felt he was close. He roared loudly as he neared the end. Then he pulled out at the right time and Serena laid herself out, ready for his load. Ash rubbed his dick over her and Serena excitedly waited patiently. At first, nothing was coming out and Ash was starting to wonder what was happening. He kept rubbing anyway and held his breath a little, until his pupils dilated and his whole body quivered. Come on. Come for me, baby. I know you can do it. Come, pleaded Serena. Serena's encouragement loosened Ash up, as he felt another orgasm rushing up his shaft. Seconds later, thick splashes of hot jizz splurged out and sprayed all over Serena's body, with some even landing on her face. Ash fell backwards a little and struggled to keep his balance upon ejaculation. He put a hand on the bed to stop his fall. Serena was absolutely shocked at the amount of cum that blasted out of Ash's dick. Her mouth was wide open, with some cum on her lips. The impact of it was a strange feeling for her at first, but the warmth of the cum made Serena feel a lot better about it in no time. She licked her lips and tasted it. Wow. That's a lot of cum, baby, said Serena, giggling. Yeah, I didn't know I could cum that much, said Ash, still a little shocked himself. Serena licked some more of Ash's sweet nectar off her boobs. Well, you taste pretty good, so I'm not complaining. Serena winked at him. It was a strange feeling for Ash at first too, but then his eyes drooped and his lips curled into a satisfied smile. He had never felt so blissed out before. It was as though there wasn't a worry in the world anymore and he had taken some sort of stimulant drug to zone him out. He looked over at the mess he had made, leaving Serena covered in his semen. Ash figured that it must have been the result of a lot of pent-up tension that he didn't even know he had before. The average male would have already been coming bucket loads by Ash's age. So it was like his body's way of saying, at last. One thing was for sure, anyway. He wanted to relive this feeling again and he wanted it to be with Serena every single time. Sex with Serena felt better than winning any gym badge he'd ever won, and that was saying something for Ash, considering how good that always made him feel. Why didn't he fuck Serena earlier? Ash's face turned goofy, in a state of contentedness, and then he collapsed onto the bed next to Serena, completely worn out. Having sex for the first time was always going to be rough on the body for them, but it was so worth it. Serena cleaned herself up and then they got into bed together. Ash was still a bit off with the fairies, while Serena looked up to the ceiling and mouthed, finally, and thanked her lucky stars. It was quite the night and they had been at it for a fair while, as the time was now heading towards midnight. Serena rested her head on Ash's chest and listened to his racy heartbeat. They were both sweaty and trying to catch their breath and couldn't stop smiling. That was amazing. Best birthday present ever, exclaimed Serena, between breaths. Oh, you're telling me. Why didn't we do that sooner? They both laughed. I'm guessing you liked it then? Liked it? I absolutely loved it. Can we do it again sometime? Serena giggled. Of course, I'm your girlfriend, Ash, and I definitely need this to happen more regularly, hee. Oh, same here. But, how was it for you? Was it good enough? Oh, Ash. You don't even need to ask that. It was perfect, okay? You had nothing to worry about. You were sensational. And I'm still struggling to catch my breath. That's how good it was. Ah, well, I'm glad you weren't disappointed. That was my biggest worry. Now that's not even possible. You've never disappointed me, and you just satisfied all my needs and then some. Ash smiled and pulled her closer to him. Well, there's definitely gonna be more of that to come then. He winked and then they both laughed again. It went silent for a while after that and all they heard was the ticking of the clock and their rattled breaths. It had been a long day and they were both exhausted, especially after what they had just done. They almost even fell asleep and had their eyes closed for a second, but then Ash broke the silence. Hey, Rena? I know this is totally random but, I love you, he said, sleepily. Serena's eyes bulged open wide and she sat up to face Ash. He still had his eyes shut and looked like he was drifting off now, but Serena shook him awake. Why you what? Ash opened one eye and smiled goofily at her. I love you, he repeated. He opened both eyes now and crinkled them with adoration. Serena remained quiet for a few seconds and Ash's expression quickly changed to worry. Rena? You alright? She stayed quiet for a few more seconds and just looked at him with her mouth open. Then she burst out laughing, a little hysterically. Hey. What? What is it? Did I say it too soon? Ash laughed with her, but he was still a little nervous. Serena stopped laughing and collected her thoughts. No sorry, it's just, do you realize how long I've wanted to say that to you? Ash shook his head. Months and months, Ash. And you just casually drop it out of nowhere, after we have sex? Well, I felt like it was the right time, so, I just said what was on my mind. Ash shrugged and grinned boyishly. Serena shook her head in disbelief and slapped his arm playfully. She was almost tempted to laugh again, at how far-fetched this was, but now it was starting to feel more real. It was true and genuine. Okay. I just can't believe you said it before me though, but you definitely mean it, right? You have to mean it when you say it, Ash. Of course I do. We've been dating a long time now and I feel like we're at a point where we can start building a life together. You know, settling down, like my mom said. Really? You'd want to be with me, like that? Yes. I've never felt like this about anyone before, Rena. You've always been special to me and I genuinely believe you're the one. You always have been. Serena's eyes sparkled brightly, as she could barely contain her emotions now. Oh, I feel exactly the same way, Ash. And now we've made love, it feels like the final seal on our relationship has been tied together, like our ribbon. She put her hand on her head, to feel it still attached securely to her hair. Well, I'm fully committed to you, Rena. We're just getting started and I want to spend the rest of my life with you. And that ribbon is exactly what binds us together. Ash placed his hand on top of Serena's, before they both brought their hands back down and interlocked their fingers. Me too, Ash, said Serena, shakily. Serena was just so overcome with raw emotion at this point and couldn't control her vocal cords anymore, nor her body, as she began to shake a little. Ash kissed her and rubbed her hands comfortingly, to stop her shaking. Then they resumed their cuddling position and just stayed like that for a few minutes. Hey, birthday girl. I hope you enjoyed your day. I was determined to make it one to remember, was it? Oh, I literally couldn't ask for anything more and I definitely won't forget it. Thank you for everything, mon amour. Serena stroked his chest and Ash felt himself getting goosebumps. He was hopeless at French, but he knew what that meant. This was truly what it meant to be in love. This very moment. Ash didn't think he would ever know the feeling, but his heart was still beating fast and it wasn't because he was out of breath anymore. You're so welcome, and thank you for an amazing first time, and for being so patient with me. Ah. No problem. You're welcome too, Ash. Ash smiled and then yawned. Serena gave him a playful look and then Ash looked a little apologetic. Oh, sorry to ruin the moment. I'm just exhausted. Haha, it's okay. I'm tired too, to be honest. Gonna drop off any second, now. Serena yawned too. Let's call it a day. Night, baby. Oh, and I love you too. Serena brushed her hand across Ash's cheek and shut her eyes. Ash paused for a bit, to process a response. Even though he had already admitted it himself, it was still a powerful set of words to hear and comprehend. He decided a kiss goodnight of affirmation would be enough. I know. Night, baby. Sweet dreams. He kissed her cheek and then they snuggled up for the night. They both fell asleep smiling, knowing they had one more day in Kalos and then it would be time to return home. And one thing was sure. They would be returning as more than just boyfriend and girlfriend. Taking things to the next level had changed everything and their relationship was only going to grow even stronger, from that night onwards. Tomorrow was the start of a very new dynamic to their lives together. The end. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Please let me know your thoughts and reviews in the comment box. Now I will see you in the next video.